ठीक है ना? Okay. So we'll start with the GS1 paper. ठीक है? How many of you attempted the या फिर how many of you have given the mains this year? एक आप में से? Okay. And how did you find the GS1 paper?
स्टैटिक ज्यादा था।
Mm-hmm.
कुछ क्वेश्चंस जो थे जो पेपर एग्जाम हॉल में थोड़ा सा ट्रिकी लग सकते थे वो वही थे जो ओवरलैप था। जैसे सिविल सर्विस का क्वेश्चन है, स्मार्ट सिटी वाला क्वेश्चन जो जीएस3 जीएस4 के लगते हैं,
Mm-hmm.
तो ये थोड़ा सा ट्रिकी है एग्जाम हॉल में बैठ
Mm-hmm.
के बाहर निकल के इजी है।
ठीक है.
बाकी तो रियली
Okay.
85 के 90 था ज्यादा नहीं।
So if we go with the analysis of the papers, ठीक है. Firstly, with respect to subject wise, अगर आप देखोगे तो there has not been a major change with respect to overall history. तो ओवरऑल हिस्ट्री के आपके 6 क्वेश्चंस तो कंटिन्यूअसली आ ही रहे हैं. ठीक है. विद इन हिस्ट्री जो भी वेटेज है, मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री या फिर आर्ट एंड कल्चर, पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री, दैट इज वो थोड़ा सा डिफर हो रहा है, बट ओवरऑल द वेटेज ऑफ 6 क्वेश्चंस ऑफ हिस्ट्री इज देयर. द मेजर शिफ्ट इज हैपनिंग इन सोसाइटी एंड ज्योग्राफी. So last year they asked 9 questions from society and 5 only from geography. This year they have asked 6 questions from society and 8 from geography. And within geography also, 3 were from physical geography and 5 were from economic geography. Okay. So this is the subject specific analysis. But the more important analysis, which is the nature of the questions. If you come to the nature of the questions, I have divided the questions on the basis of these 3 criteria. One, which is the static. Static as in जो आपके standard books में से direct questions आए हैं. ठीक है कि not even in from current affairs, but जो standard book है from if you talk about geography, the questions which are directly from the NCERTs. ठीक है. For history जो भी आपके स्टैंडर्ड बुक स्पेक्ट्रम या फिर नितिन सिंघानिया वॉट एवर स्टैंडर्ड बुक्स यू आर फॉलोइंग, अगर उससे आ गए, those are static. Second are the niche topics. Niche topics are basically which are linked to the current affairs or which are applied in nature. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल द AI वाला क्वेश्चन जो था, ठीक है, हाउ कैन AI एंड ड्रोन्स इफेक्टिवली यूज द GIS data. ठीक है, दैट पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन वाज द अप्लाइड क्वेश्चन. ठीक है. बाकी करंट अफेयर्स लिंकेज वाले बेस मोर ऑफ ग्लोबलाइजेशन रिलेटेड क्वेश्चंस. ठीक है, दोज वेर द नीश टॉपिक्स. एंड द रैंडम मतलब जिसका आपको कोई आइडिया नहीं है. ठीक है, देयर वेर 2 सच क्वेश्चंस एंड नॉर्मली दिस पैटर्न इज कंसिस्टेंट इन यूपीएससी. लास्ट ईयर ऑल्सो इफ यू सी देयर वाज वन क्वेश्चन ऑन द ट्विस्टर. ठीक है, दैट वाज कंप्लीटली रैंडम. ठीक है, दिस ईयर ऑल्सो one of civil society related question and another और एक question था. When that question will come I will tell you, but 2 random questions were there. ठीक है. Now with respect to the mark distribution, if you see, तो जो static वाले questions होते हैं, and this classification is for GS 1, 2 and 3 generally यही classification UPSC का हमेशा रहता है. ठीक है. Normally what we tell aspirants is कि out of 20 questions there will be 14 to 15 questions in which you will be having a very good content and you will be able to write very good answers. ठीक है. इसमें जो सीरियस एस्पिरेंट्स होते हैं कि those who reach to the level of interview or those who get the rank not in top 100 but the after top 100, they end up with above average 4.5 to 5 marks because they have a good knowledge of it. But even in such questions, what toppers do, they bring some X factor. X factor as in they will be bringing 1 or 2 unique points and they will ensure the visibility of it. Okay, how to bring this we'll see in the very first question. Because of that, the content of these two is 95% of the content will be the same. Only these 2 points, ठीक है, will make the difference of 0.5 to 1 marks. ठीक है, and अगर आप if you apply that to the 11 questions, 1 mark per question, then also that's the difference of 11 marks. और वही difference होता है. ठीक है, if you see the marks of the topper, top 10 rank holders and बाकी किसी भी रैंक होल्डर या इंटरव्यू वाले का अगर कोई भी जीएस पेपर में देखो, that will be the difference of 11 marks only, right? Then जो नीश करंट अफेयर्स वाले होते हैं उसमें भी there will be a difference of 1 mark और यहाँ पे 0.5 marks का maximum difference होता है. And in random questions also this. So how they do is simple कि obviously the content will be generic, ठीक है, but what they do to compensate for the generic content, that is they won't be having much of the examples. So for example, the use of AI and drones, you won't be having much of the examples or data for substantiation, right? So in such questions you will be having a generic data, but what they will do, they will compensate the generic data by increasing the dimensions. Okay, while normal aspirants end up writing 7 to 8 points in such questions, they will bring up 2 to 3 extra points even though there is no substantiation. Okay, and that will give that extra 1 mark. Okay, how to do that? So let's start. The very first question, discuss the salient features of Harappan architecture. So if you see the same question we had asked in our FLT 3 on Harappa, in what ways does Harappan architecture reflect utilitarian functionality and aesthetic sensibilities? Okay. So we were right in predicting this particular question because it was in current affairs. Okay. Majorly because of every year there are excavations with respect to the Harappa, that is not the big thing, but 2024 marked the 100th year of discovery of Harappa. It was discovered in 1924 by John Marshall. And because of that, we were expecting a question on Harappa. And secondly, in Harappa, you don't have any other theme. So for example, if you take any other theme, for example, if you take Mughals, so you have different aspects on which you can ask the question. So you can ask on the Mughal architecture, you can ask on the Mughal administration, they can ask a question on the Mughal military strategies, or they can ask the question on the Mughal religious and social policies. But Harappa में दूसरा कोई है ही नहीं. There the language or the script has not been deciphered. Not much information was available with respect to their trading or their society. There is only one aspect about which information is available, and that is the architecture and their arts. Okay, so उसी पे आना था. We were right in predicting this particular question. Even if you see previous year question also, it was on urban planning, right? So this was your prediction. Now coming to the answer, what normal aspirants will do with respect to the origin, they will follow the standard framework where they will give you the origin of Harappa, right? Or what was the time period for Harappa? What was the time period of Harappa? 2500 to 1900 BCE. Right, majority of the aspirants will end up with this introduction. आपने क्या किया? यही किया, right? That's the thing. So 99% will be having the same introduction. But what the different way that topper will do, they will obviously write this one. ठीक है, but they will add the X factor. जैसे one कि अगर जिन्होंने स्मैश मेंस का जो अगर पेपर लिखा है, what we suggested कि you keep a close watch on the questions itself. खास करके IR में we suggest, IR में majorly we ask the code based questions only. You remember those codes. अगर उस थीम पे क्वेश्चन आ जाए, that very question itself will become your introduction. ठीक है, यहाँ पे भी this same can be your introduction. Only thing कि Harappan architecture in bracket you write 2500 to 1900 BC reflects both utilitarian functionality and aesthetic sensibilities. Now that is the proper way of giving the introduction. Right, normally what they will do, and that will immediately here it will make an impact of 0.25 marks. ठीक है, because you have brought some uniqueness. Now, second way, जैसे मैंने अभी कहा, there is one X factor कि Harappan marked the 100th year of discovery. So you can give the contextual introduction also. Okay, so 2024 marked the 100th year of discovery of Harappan civilization. In bracket, you mention the same year by John Marshall. That is again a unique way or the more enriched way of giving the introduction. Okay? So that was one. What was the second X factor, or what was the point which one is the 100th year? What was the second uniqueness or the what you can say the X factor with respect to Harappa architecture that you know? Yes. Baki to everything is fine, urban planning, etc. are all fine. But what are the points which you consider as the X factor points? Which you think ki out of 100, only 10 or only 15 people will write that particular point? No, that is again a standard point. No, I just want a unique point. जैसे ये हो गया कि 2024 marked 100th year. He has announced the 1 million something for deciphering that code. But how will you use in this particular one? Because they have asked about architecture.
डिस्कवरी को 2 साल हो गए लगभग, लेकिन उसके बाद भी अभी तक हमारी जो टाउन प्लानिंग है उसमें जो ड्रेनेज का सिस्टम है वो कवर नहीं है.
So again, with respect to that, only one important X factor or the fact is Chandigarh planning is
only city है पूरी तरीके से प्लान है.
Chandigarh city is similar to the Harappa, right? And third X factor is Dholavira was included in UNESCO World Heritage Site, right? तो आपको ये तीन आपके X factor है which should have been there into your answers. बाकी वो rectangular grid pattern, then the urban planning, then citadel and the residential planning or the वो सारे urban planning के architecture related points everyone will end up writing. But these 3 points you have to incorporate and you have to ensure the visibility of it. Okay, how will you do it? Yes, water harvesting will also come. Right. So these are the 3 X factor pointers which you have to add into your answers. Okay. So one, we utilized it into the introduction. Right. Second, Dholavira, we will conclude your answer with this. The architectural excellence was recognized by UNESCO in 2021 by incorporating Dholavira as World Heritage Site. This will be your second. And third, you will simply add it as a fact. Okay. Chandigarh reflects the Harappan architectural legacy. Okay. So will you do it? Okay, again, this is the normal answer that the aspirants will write. Again, the same intro जो हमने question पूछा था, unity, uniformity and civic order rather than ornamental or monumental display. ठीक है. और जो हमने question पूछा था utilitarian functionality and aesthetic sensibility, same you can give. Or second, it marked 2024 marked the 100th year. Now you come to the salient features of Harappan architecture. Again, this question is on the Harappa. One common notion with the aspirants is that in all the art and culture related questions, they have the notion that your content deficit will be there. So to bridge that content deficit, you have to draw the map. Right? आपने डाला है map Harappa का. Right? But there is no need for it. In this particular question, rather than map, what you should have done is you should have added this plan.
ये भी डाल
राइट। तो फिर कंटेंट ही नहीं आएगा आपने अगर मैप और ये दोनों भी डाला है तो,
नहीं साइड में दोनों छोटे
ठीक है। बट दिस वाज द टाउन प्लानिंग, इसका डायग्राम यू शुड हैव एडेड एंड इट वाज देयर इनटू आवर मॉडल आंसर। ये जिन्होंने भी पढ़ा है, all of them have added this. Now it's all about the covering the aspects, ठीक है। So with respect to Harappan architecture, ठीक है, for any architecture to cover the specifically with respect to the Harappa, the dimensions that you could have covered is the urban planning, right? Second, materials used for any architecture. Third, you can subclassify the points under the public buildings like the citadel and all, and the residential buildings, ठीक है। Next, you could have talked about drainage. Yes, you could have talked about water management. Then you could have talked about port infrastructure, है ना? यही dimensions है. All you had to do is substantiate using the specific examples, right? So अगर देखोगे urban planning, तो the basic keyword in the urban planning is the rectangular grid pattern. ये इसका substantiation आपका आ गया. Second, segregation into citadel and lower town, right? Second, the building materials, extensive bricks of uniform ratio, ठीक है, and big brick line drains and platforms. Third, you talk about the public architecture. तो public architecture में कौन से आपके great bath is there, granaries is there, ठीक है. Simply there will be, you can make this like this and you can make the two sub dimensions, ठीक है. But then this is about the residential buildings. Okay, one is the open courtyard. Again, rather than writing the subpoints, what you could have done, you can made it like a flow chart like this. And you can make it 3 subpoints. One is the open courtyards, second 2 to 3 storied houses, okay, and then doors open into side lanes, not on the main streets. That's it. So this is how, with the limited space, you could have covered more dimensions. Right? It's not just writing just one point and giving one single elaboration. Rather, you make a flowchart and give this. Then you have drainage and sanitation system, covered drains, okay, and fortification and defensive works. Then you have water management, Dolavira and dockyard, specialized architecture at different sites. या फिर port infrastructure also you can give. And यही पे, while writing the points, what you could have done. So suppose this is your margin of the paper. This is your margins. नहीं, यहाँ पे you are not allowed to write. So along with this, a simple box you could have made. And your third X factor is Chandigarh. ठीक है? That's it. So these 3 X factors, and conclusion, rather than a simple conclusion, the architectural excellence of Harappa was recognized by UNESCO and as a World Heritage Site, with Dolavira as the World Heritage Site in 2021. ये 3 X factor pointers अगर आपके आंसर्स में आते, तो नॉर्मल इतनी ही पॉइंट्स में, even if all the points are covered except X factor, the topper will, or the rank holder will get 4.5 or maximum 5, right? But you will end up with 6. ठीक है, इनमें से कौन से 3 में से कौन से पॉइंट आए आपके आंसर में?
ये फर्स्ट पॉइंट था जॉन मार्शल का डाला था मैंने टाइम के साथ, बाकी तो धोलावीरा यूनेस्को साइड नहीं डाला,
ठीक है.
और चंडीगढ़ का नहीं था.
Then examine the main aspects of Akbar's religious syncretism. And this was again, not this year, but last year we asked this question. Okay. Again, this was again from the static. जैसे the theme of the ancient and medieval is, you can cover the or you have to cover the kingdom specific art, culture, their administration and military, right? So when you will be doing Mughals, जैसे हमने पहले ही कहा था ना, तो मुगल्स के जो सब पार्ट्स उनके आएंगे कि उनके पॉलिटिकल पॉलिसीज, उनका एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, राइट, उनकी रिलीजियस पॉलिसीज, आर्किटेक्चर, कल्चर, लिटरेचर, ये सारे एस्पेक्ट्स यू नीड टू कवर, ठीक है। व्हेन यू विल बी कवरिंग द रिलीजियस पॉलिसीज, तो कंपैरेटिवली सो अकबर से लेके with Aurangzeb, you need to have the brief idea with respect to the overall religious policy of every kingdom, ठीक है। तो उससे भी religious, now how to decode this particular question, ठीक है। First of all, understand the directive that they have given, ठीक है। What is the directive? Examine. So when you have to examine, what you do? Yes. What is the demand of the directive examine? Yes. No, that is discussed. Basically, you have to highlight the positives of it and negatives of it. No. So the demand of the question is not just to tell about his religious policy, but to evaluate, highlight the positives of it and negatives of it. ठीक है, जो normal aspirants, they will end up writing its religious policy, the Sulai Kul, then Ibadat Khana and all. ठीक है, they will end up there itself. They won't go for the analysis of it, but the directive is to examine, right? So the introduction would be, not introduction, but the, if you talk about the structure, so after the introduction, first you will talk about his policy, then the positives or significance of it, and limitations of it. Okay, and conclusion. That should have been the structure. Now this is as a 10 marker question, so 3 headings won't be feasible. अगर आपने अच्छे से पढ़ा है, if you have the content, so this part you write it into the point format, and for this analysis part you use a table where on the left hand side you talk about this the positive aspects of it, and on the right hand side you talk about the limitations of it. Okay, now coming to the answer. Again, for every kingdom specific, just a minute. So for every king, it is always advisable if you know their time period. Okay, that. And second, if you don't have the introduction, okay, this is the personality specific question, right, with respect to the Akbar. So you just, if you have the quote with respect to that personality or introduction, you can directly talk about the significance of that personality. Okay. So Akbar is considered as the most important of the Mughal emperor, not just for his political conquest, but also for his religious and social policy. Okay, so basically what you are doing, you are establishing the significance of that particular king. Secondly, you are also linking it with the theme of the question. What is the theme of the question? His religious policy, right? So by highlighting the significance, considered one of the most important Mughal emperor, not just because of this political conquests, but because of his religious and social policies. Okay, that who sought not merely the political conquest but spiritual integration of diverse society. Okay, then if you have the quote with respect to the important king, you can talk about this, because Akbar, Krishna Dev Rai, Ashoka, they are some of the UPSC's favorite kings. So you can always expect a question on those kings. So unke preparing one quote related to each one of them, okay, can be your introduction. Now, main aspects of his religious syncretism. Basically, यहाँ पे all you have to do is give the points where he talked about or he established his own religion, Dine Ilahi. Right? Basically, it was not a religion, but the ethical order based upon the principles of pity, compassion, unity. Okay. Second, he talked about Sulaikul, which was influenced by the Bhaktiism, which talked about universal peace and oneness of God. Okay. And in that spirit, he abolished jizya. Then Ibadat Khana, where he indulged into the intellectual dialogue with the scholars from all the religions. Right. अब ये पॉइंट्स तो हर किसी को पता है, मतलब जिन्होंने पढ़ा है, these are the specific points, right, with respect to the Akbar. But if you come to the theme of the question, basically what they are saying is religious syncretism. What is the meaning of religious syncretism? Yes. What is the meaning of this particular concept?
influencing multiple culture.
Yes. So basically, it talks about interaction between religions. No? How his policy was influenced by principles of the different religions, right? So what you have to do is 3 points तो वो specific हो गए. After that, all you had to do is highlight the influence of Hindu tradition, right? Influence of Bhakti and Sufi. और कौन सा religion था during that time? Influence of Christianity if possible. ठीक है? And he was also influenced by Jainism. That is his religious syncretism, where he took the principles from the different religions. That's it. After it, you will have the points. तो extension देखना. तो जैसे influence of Sufism, inspired by Chishti saints, adopted universal brotherhood, spiritual tolerance. अब सूफीज्म तो आपने पढ़ा होगा, सूफीज्म के ये 2 प्रिंसिपल्स आपको पता है. सिंपली राइट दैट, रिस्पेक्ट फॉर हिंदू ट्रेडिशंस. अब अकबर का जोधा अकबर सभी ने देखा ही होगा, सेलिब्रेशन ऑफ डिफरेंट कल्चर्स. ठीक है. देन एवरी किंग बिफोर इवन औरंगजेब, और बिफोर औरंगजेब, ईच ऑफ देम हैव कमीशन्ड द ट्रांसलेशंस ऑफ द लिटरेचर. ठीक है. और कौन सा लिटरेचर मेजरली करते हैं? महाभारत या फिर दिस रामायण. ठीक है. सिंपली राइट. Celebrated festival, permitted temples, and forged Rajput alliance. ठीक है. And commission Persian translations. अब इसी को you can make the 4 sub points, right? ऐसे. Then engagement with Jainism. That is his religious syncretism. Now coming to the, just a minute. Now coming to the analysis part, because the directive is, ये clear है यहाँ तक? Any doubts till now? ये clear है? How you have to think and how you have to generate the points? ठीक है. After this, then you come to the significance and limitations. ठीक है. Again, if you have the brief idea with respect to his policy, what you will do is simply with all this, Sulai, Kul and all, ठीक है, what he did, promoted tolerance. ठीक है. On the one hand, if he had promoted the tolerance, ठीक है, the proponent of intolerance, basically the elite class of every society, ठीक है. तो जैसे face resistance from orthodox ulema, ठीक है. Then second, the political aspect of it, the political integration by forging the alliances, Rajput alliance, Raja Man Singh as a noble. Okay, second, though he talked about the integration, but there were very few followers. One is Abu Fazl, second is Birbal. Third, encouraged interfaith dialogue. But this interfaith dialogue was limited to the elites. It didn't reach to the masses. ठीक है. सिर्फ इबादत खाना में ही होता था, ठीक है, बाहर तो नहीं. तो remained court centric, not mass based. Right? हो गए. Even 3 points are fine. Fostered cultural synthesis in literature and again जो हमारा next point था कि commissioned Hindu traditions के with respect to translation of the literature. So that was cultural synthesis. ठीक है. But reforms were personal and not institutionalized. ठीक है. He just talked about Deen-e Ilahi as the ethical order. There was no institution of church, mandir or the similar masjid. He didn't institutionalize him. What are the rituals with respect to that, how to convert into that religion, etc. So it was just a personal matter of faith rather than institutionalized religion. Last is religious syncretism and the policy of tolerance enhanced the legitimacy of Mughal rule. But even though it enhanced the legitimacy during, यार ये बंद है extension, मतलब वहाँ का वो स्विच ही बंद है. तो even though it enhanced the legitimacy during Akbar's rule, ठीक है, it cannot continue under the later Mughals. Example, Aurangzeb. ठीक है. So this is how you have to talk or you have to write about the analysis because the directive is examine. So when they talk about the examine, you had to do is highlight the significance of it and the limitations of it. किया है आपने? ठीक है. ठीक है. And then conclusion again कि with respect to the significance या फिर what you can talk about कि is the one is कि if you have the quote, या second you can talk about the contemporary relevance, या फिर you can link it with the constitution. ठीक है. So constitution कैसे, या फिर the constitutional vision of religious freedom under article 25 to 28, ठीक है, is linked to the Akbar's policy of religious syncretism or Akbar's religious vision of religious syncretism or vision of Dine, not Dine Ilahi, Sulahe Kul. ठीक है. ये या फिर कंटेम्प्रेरी कोई भी इशू से आप लिंक कर सकते हो. सो अकबर विजन्स ऑफ यूनिवर्सल ब्रदरहुड और सुलेकुल is relevant in context of rising the intolerance, mob lynching and communal hatred, right? In that way also you can link. Or the third aspect in which you can write is the highlight the influence. Okay, in later questions we will see how it influenced the later on school of thought या फिर later on scholars. No? Yes. And now coming to the next is sculptures fill the Chandela art form with resilient vigor and breadth of life. Now this is the third category of the question which is random. ठीक है. अब चंदेला का मैक्सिमम टू मैक्सिमम इवन जिसका AR1 आएगा इस साल he will be also knowing only with respect to the खजुराहो. ठीक है, उसके बियॉन्ड किसी को कुछ और खजुराहो के टेम्पल के नाम उसको पता होगा, बियॉन्ड दैट ही वोंट बी नोइंग एनीथिंग। ठीक है, इतना डिटेलिंग चंदेला का एटलीस्ट कोई नहीं कर सकता। इवन माई एक्स फैक्टर नोट्स दैट आई हैव गिवन, आई हैड गिवन एटलीस्ट आई थिंक ओनली 5 or 6 पॉइंट्स ओनली विद रिस्पेक्ट टू दी चंदेला। ठीक है, क्योंकि उसके बियॉन्ड है भी नहीं। बट अगेन अब आंसर तो लिखना ही है। नाउ यू जस्ट फोकस अपॉन द कीवर्ड्स। एक तो अब चंडेला आर्ट फॉर्म आपको पता है। ठीक है, सो चंडेला रूलर कौन से रीजन के थे? सेंट्रल इंडिया। ठीक है, और बुंदेलखंड। ठीक है, सेकंड मेजर आपको टेम्पल कौन सा पता है? खजुराहो। ठीक है, थर्ड इनका टाइम पीरियड क्या था? 9th to 13th सेंचुरी किसी को नहीं पता होगा, दैट्स फाइन, बट वाज इट मिडाइवल टाइम्स और दी एंशिएंट टाइम्स? मिडाइवल टाइम्स। ठीक है, सो दी चंडेला रूलर्स ऑफ मिडाइवल इंडिया, ठीक है, ऑफ बुंदेलखंड, ऑफ या फिर ऑफ सेंट्रल इंडिया विथ खजुराहो एज देयर कैपिटल, क्रिएटेड। अब स्कल्पचर्स का हमने कीवर्ड दिया था वर्ड ऑफ स्टोन्स। ठीक है, वर्ड ऑफ स्टोन्स थ्रू स्कल्पचर्स। बस इतना इंट्रोडक्शन सफिशिएंट है। ठीक है, अब चंदेला को आप रिप्लेस करो किसी और किंगडम से, उनका स्कल्पचर पूछने दो, देयर आल्सो यू विल हैव द सेम कीवर्ड। ठीक है, उनका बस रीजन लिखो, टाइम पीरियड एग्जैक्ट नहीं पता है तो एंशिएंट या फिर मिडाइवल, बोथ आर फाइन, रीजन मेंशन करो एंड जो थीम पूछा है। ठीक है, सिमिलरली यू प्रिपेयर वन सिमिलर कीवर्ड फॉर द टेम्पल। ठीक है, टेम्पल का भी एक ऐसे सिमिलर कीवर्ड प्रिपेयर करो सो दैट यू कैन यूज। ठीक है, या फिर अगर नहीं है, जैसे गुप्ता पीरियड इज नोन एज द गोल्डन पीरियड। ठीक है, सो सिमिलरली दी चंडेला किंगडम, ठीक है, ऑफ और दी मिडाइवल टाइम्स चंडेला किंगडम, ठीक है, ऑफ सेंट्रल फ्रॉम सेंट्रल इंडिया, ठीक है, अचीव्ड दी और is known for the golden period of Indian sculptural development। ठीक है, गोल्डन पीरियड को डबल कोलन कर दो, बॉक्स कर दो, दैट्स इट। जो इवेलुएटर है वो उसी को सिर्फ देखने वाला है। सो दैट कैन बी योर इंट्रोडक्शन। नेक्स्ट व्हाट यू हैव टू डू इज हाउ टू जनरेट द पॉइंट्स इज वन, ऑब्वियसली अब यहाँ कोई स्कोप नहीं है, यू हैव टू ड्रॉ द मैप। ठीक है, तो सेंट्रल इंडिया के आसपास का ये एरिया ऐसे दिखाओ, यहाँ पे जितने आपको उसके पता है ओनली राइट दोज, उसके बाजू के जो आपके पास किंगडम पता होंगे दैट यू राइट। ऑलवेज रिमेंबर व्हेन यू आर ड्राइंग द मैप, जितना मैक्सिमम डिटेलिंग पॉसिबल हो मैप में उतना मैक्सिमम डिटेलिंग करो। ठीक है, अब आपको सपोज स्पेसेस नहीं पता है, ओनली यू नो अबाउट दी दिस खजुराहो। ठीक है, यू सिंपली शो दी खजुराहो, उनके किंगडम के बाजू के किंगडम्स दिखाओ। ठीक है, सो इंट्रोडक्शन इज सॉर्टेड, द मैप इज सॉर्टेड। Next thing is generate the points with respect to the sculptures. Okay, now how would you generate the points? One aspect everybody knows with respect to the erotic sculptures on the temples. ठीक है, वो एक पता है। Second, now what they have asked, the sculptures are filled with resilient vigor and breadth of life. ठीक है, so basically you forget about this part, you basically have to highlight the significance of the sculpture. So what are यहाँ पे आपको what you have to do is you have to follow the component based approach where you need to know the different components of the sculpture. So components कौन से होते हैं? One is with respect to the expressions, right? So expressions आप कितने detailed में या refined way में you are providing those expressions. You can simply write one point कि the highest degree of refinement in finishing of the sculptures on the walls of the temples. Example, वो temple का नाम लिख दो, right? Second, the ornamentation on the sculptures of the, अब sculptures कौन से होते हैं? गॉड्स के होते हैं, वुमेन के होते हैं, कॉमन पीपल के, या फिर किंग्स के होते हैं, right? The ornamentation on the figures of the gods, kings and this queens. ठीक है. थर्ड कि पॉलिश, ठीक है, पॉलिश वाला रहने दो, बट यहाँ से आपके 2 पॉइंट्स तो बनेंगे. ठीक है. थर्ड एस्पेक्ट इज ऑलवेज विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू द एक्सप्रेशन एंड सिंबोलिज्म. आप इरोटिक स्कल्पचर्स आपको पता है, दैट इज द एक्सप्रेशन. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट इज द सिंबोलिज्म. तो सिंबोलिज्म आपका कैसे होता है? वन इज द रिलीजियस सिंबोलिज्म. ठीक है. तो स्कल्पचर्स ऑन द वॉल ऑफ द temples or sculptures in the garbhagruha of the temple. ठीक है. second symbolism is use of the animals. ठीक है. so the sculptures of the animals as the vehicles of the god, ठीक है, highlighting the significance of the animals in Hinduism. and third obviously the material base. ये हमने इसमें भी लिखा था हड़प्पा में, राइट. तो अब कैसे पॉइंट्स आ जाएंगे लेटर ऑन. we can also talk about the significance के basis पे भी you can write the points. So it reflects the breadth of life by reflecting the social life of that period. ठीक है. वैसे तो रिलीजियस में डिपिक्शन ऑफ द स्टोरीज ऑफ रामायण एंड महाभारत. ठीक है. वैसे आप पॉइंट्स वहाँ पे जनरेट कर सकते थे इवन इफ यू डोंट हैव द सब्सटेंशिएशन. आपके पास 2 ही पॉइंट्स है. एक कौन सा है? खजुराहो का एक है, एक आपके पास है दिस इरोटिक स्कल्पचर्स. बाकी जिसने थोड़ा भी अगर पढ़ा है he will know about 2 more things. one is the Varaha sculptures and second is the sculptures of the Apsara. ठीक है. in different expressions. बट ये 2 अगेन जिसने बहुत ज़्यादा पढ़ा है उसी को पता होगे, बट जो फर्स्ट 2 थिंग्स है वो सभी को पता होगे. यू गिव दोज 2 एज योर फर्स्ट 2 substantiation, और बाकी you just prepare the generic points, right. so normal aspirants, what they will do, they will end up this entire answer with 3 or 4 points. ठीक है. but topper using this kind of the simple statements बनाओ. ठीक है. even if you don't have the substantiation you will end up with at least 8 to 9 points. ठीक है. कैसे? जैसे देखो कि डायनेमिक ह्यूमन एक्सप्रेशन. ठीक है. हाईलाइटिंग. अब यहाँ पे आपको ये पता नहीं है एक्सप्रेसिव अप्सरास राइटिंग लेटर एडॉर्निंग देमसेल्फ, दिस यू डोंट नो. ठीक है. दैट्स कंप्लीटली फाइन. बट हाउ यू कैन प्रिपेयर अ सेंटेंस? डायनेमिक ह्यूमन एक्सप्रेशंस हाईलाइटिंग द डिफरेंट एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ द सॉरो, जॉय, और क्या होता है, और द दिस 4 गोल्स ऑफ द लाइफ, धर्म अर्थ काम मोक्ष. ठीक है. सिमिलरली ऐसे बनाओ जेनरिक पॉइंट, दैट्स कंप्लीटली फाइन. सेकंड वेरिड मूड्स, यहाँ पे ये. ठीक है. अब यहाँ पे देयर इज नो सब्सटेंशिएशन, दिस इज सिंपली द पॉइंट. ठीक है. थर्ड, अब ये इरोटिक स्कल्पचर आपको पता है. ठीक है. कंडारिया महादेवा टेम्पल्स, तो ये मिथुना कपल्स रिप्रेजेंट उसका सिग्निफिकेंस, फर्टिलिटी, कॉस्मिक यूनियन एंड कंटिन्यूटी ऑफ लाइफ. ठीक है. देन डायनेमिक पोस्चर्स. ठीक है. तो पोस्चर हमें एक ही पता है, त्रिभागा पोस्चर. ठीक है. तो त्रिभागा पोस्चर लिख दो यहाँ पे. डायनेमिक पोस्चर, एक एग्जाम्पल द त्रिभागा पोस्चर ऑन लक्ष्मणा टेम्पल. ठीक है. सिंपल पॉइंट्स. देन ज्योग्राफिकल इंस्पिरेशन, अगेन दिस इज अ स्पेसिफिक पॉइंट कि द टेम्पल्स अंडर द चंडेला रूलर्स were considered as the mountains. ठीक है. on their inscriptions the temples were compared with the mountains like Himalayas and Kailash. ठीक है. then the symbolism with respect to animal vitality. ठीक है. so the elephants as the Vishwanatha temple. so अगर आपको टेम्पल भी नहीं पता है, so elephants or the this sculptures of elephant, bull, etc. ठीक है. रिप्रेजेंट द स्ट्रेंथ एंड विगर, वही जो क्वेश्चन में दिया है वो पॉइंट. ठीक है. देन पॉलिटिकल सिंबोलिज्म हाईलाइटिंग द और द फाइननेस एंड द आर्टिस्टिक एक्सीलेंस और द स्केल ऑफ द स्कल्पचर्स रिप्रेजेंटिंग द डिवाइन पावर एंड द रॉयल और एक्ट एज द सिंबल ऑफ, ठीक है, रॉयल पैट्रोनेज एंड पावर. ठीक है. देन ठीक है, कल्चरल फ्लरिश या फिर रिफ्लेक्शन ऑफ सोसाइटी ऑल्सो यू कैन टॉक. देन इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ नेचर, अगेन दिस इज डिराइव्ड फ्रॉम दिस पॉइंट ओनली. जहाँ पे एनिमल का लिखोगे उसके बाद डायरेक्टली नेचर का पॉइंट लिखो. सो एनिमल यहाँ पे आ रहा है, यहाँ पे लोटस, बर्ड्स, ठीक है, विथ ह्यूमंस मिरर दी लुश बुंदेलखंड लैंडस्केप. ठीक है, जो भी रीजन का है उस रीजन का बता दो. ठीक है, देन सोशल रिप्रेजेंटेशन, द सिग्निफिकेंस में हमने सोशल कहा था, तो सोशल एस्पेक्ट आपका आ गया, पॉलिटिकल एस्पेक्ट आपका आ गया, राइट, एंड डिवाइन ह्यूमन यूनिटी. ठीक है, ये पॉइंट भी अगर आपका नहीं लिखा तो भी चलेगा. बट इवन विथ लिमिटेड कंटेंट यू कैन एटलीस्ट जनरेट द आर्ग्यूमेंट्स विच आर अबव जेनरिक इन नेचर. ठीक है, फॉर दैट you need to know the components. So along with these sculptures, what other themes you have? You have rock cut architecture, you have temple architecture, ठीक है, cave architecture, स्तूपा architecture. तो जो भी architecture है, ठीक है, या फिर जो भी आपके आर्ट फॉर्म्स है, पेंटिंग वगैरह, एटलीस्ट मेक अ लिस्ट ऑफ द कंपोनेंट्स ऑफ इट. ठीक है, ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द कंपोनेंट्स इटसेल्फ यू कैन जनरेट द पॉइंट्स. ठीक है, जैसे अगर पेंटिंग हो गया तो पेंट जैसे, या फिर डांस हो गया तो डांस में विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू पोस्चर, विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू इंट्रोडक्शन, कंक्लूजन, विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू द म्यूजिक विच वन दे यूज. ठीक है, विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू द अटायर, ठीक है, विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू एक्सप्रेशन, ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ दैट इटसेल्फ वी कैन प्रिपेयर द पॉइंट्स. ठीक है, सो द कंपोनेंट ऑफ एवरी आर्ट फॉर्म, ठीक है, एटलीस्ट उतना यू शुड नो. बेस्ड अपॉन दैट यू कैन प्रिपेयर अबाउट जेनरिक आंसर. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट is with respect to Mahatma Jyotirao Phule. So Mahatma Jyotirao Phule's writings and efforts of social reform touched issues of almost all subaltern classes discussed. So इसमें how you have structured this answer? You must have written only about his writings and the efforts of social reforms, right? So here if you see, if you would have referred this, okay, the answers of the toppers, what you would find the use of the 70-30 formula. Okay, even though the significance of his writings and efforts of social demand is the core demand, okay, or efforts of social reform is the core demand, along with it there were few limitations of his efforts also, right? You had to briefly mention the limitations of it also. So for example, if you see, I have brought you one answer of, this is the answer of Aditya Srivastav. Okay. So Bhagat Singh made a real breakthrough in terms of revolutionary ideology, the goals of the revolution, forms of revolutionary struggle, elucidate. ठीक है, अगेन एग्जामाइन वगैरह कुछ नहीं है, elucidate. And they have already given the dimensions in the question itself कि ideology, goals and forms मतलब methodology. तो वही तीन सब हेडिंग आएंगे, उन्हीं के नीचे पॉइंट्स आएंगे. बट इफ यू सी हिज आंसर, अब जैसे इंट्रोडक्शन, दिस इज आल्सो जेनरिक टाइम पीरियड वाला इंट्रोडक्शन है. ठीक है, रियल ब्रेक थ्रू इन टर्म्स ऑफ आइडियोलॉजी, गोल्स, इन टर्म्स ऑफ फॉर्म्स ऑफ स्ट्रगल. ठीक है, दैट इज द कोड. बट एट द एंड इफ यू सी briefly, yet his contribution was significant yet incomplete as the three limitations. This is what we call going beyond the demand. ठीक है, where you cover that theme thoroughly and comprehensively, and this is your X factor. ठीक है, so in this answer also, again there are two ways in which you could have written this answer. In this, again, the two directives that they have given, one is the with respect to writings, with respect to the social reforms. ठीक है, उसके अंडर you can segregate. Afterwards you can briefly highlight the limitations. ठीक है, इतने 5 पॉइंट्स नहीं चाहिए, 3 आर सफिशिएंट. ठीक है, बट दिस, एंड अगेन इफ यू रीड द क्वेश्चन प्रॉपर्ली, तो देयर आर टू वेज इन विच यू कुड हैव स्ट्रक्चर्ड दिस आंसर. ठीक है, वन इज दिस कि राइटिंग्स एंड एफर्ट्स ऑफ सोशल रिफॉर्म्स. तो दी राइटिंग्स मतलब उनके बुक्स आपके सब हेडिंग आएंगे, एंड उस बुक्स का कंटेंट, हाउ इट इज रिलेटेड टू एनी subaltern classes, that will come into the elaboration. right? Similarly, effort of social reforms also with respect to subaltern classes आएगा. या फिर the second aspect is where there will be the single heading and you will make subaltern classes itself as the subheading and उसके नीचे suppose for example Dalits. So Dalits के related whatever his writings are there and social reform efforts are there, you can write those points. So one way of doing is this, where you are talking about his writings and efforts of social reform. And the second way of doing it is you make the subheadings, the subaltern classes itself as the subheadings, where Shudras and Ati Shudras, he talked about it in Gulamgiri, Satyashodak Samaj, intercaste dining with respect to women, first girls school, widow homes, okay, with respect to advocacy for the women, remarriage, etc., with respect to peasants, शेतकऱ्यांचा सूड वगैरह, with respect to Dalits, schools for Dalit children, public wealth movement, with respect to the working rebels, condemn the bonded labor, ठीक है, बुलेतेदारी system, and with respect to the public advocacy, oppose the, or with respect to the education for the subaltern classes, opposed filtration theory and submitted recommendations to the Hunter Commission. This is the another way. ठीक है, both are fine. You can use any of the structure. ठीक है, I'm just giving you the options. Okay, so the major writings of it were first is the Gulamgiri. Okay, again, the one important aspect that we suggest to the aspirants is the interlinking. Okay, so during that time, during his time, the slavery was also prevalent in the other Western countries. We can, the name itself is the Gulamgiri, which means is the slavery, right? So simply, अगर थोड़ा सा interlinking करते, तो he criticized the slavery.
मतलब एक ही ग्रुप को याद आता है कि गुलामगिरी इसके अलावा
नहीं आपको पता होना चाहिए सर. ठीक है, वन थिंग, बिकॉज यू हैव टू रीड द महात्मा फुले इन द इथिक्स ऑल्सो. ठीक है, 2020 में ही यू ऑलरेडी हैड अ क्वेश्चन इन इथिक्स विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द कंट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ सावित्रीबाई फुले. तो अगर इफ यू आर डूइंग द पीवाईक्यूज थरोली, तो you should have read about Savitribai Phule and consequently about the Jyotirao Phule. ठीक है, secondly, in X factor in modern history and in ethics also, we have already covered Mahatma Phule. ठीक है, so this is basically from the static. ये तो आपका इसका नहीं है. And even अगर आप स्पेक्ट्रम में भी देखोगे सोशो रिलीजियस रिफॉर्म मूवमेंट में, यू हैव द सत्यशोधक समाज इन डिटेल. ठीक है, तो सत्यशोधक समाज ऑल्सो यू शुड हैव नोन. जो मेजर आपके है सोशल रिफॉर्मर्स, उनका आपको वर्क पता होना ही चाहिए. द फर्स्ट इज द फादर ऑफ इंडियन सोशल रिवॉल्यूशन, दैट इज द कीवर्ड. ठीक है, एंड सेकंड, उसके बाद यू सिंपली just rephrase the question. His writing reforms went beyond caste to address plight of all oppressed sections. Nothing, this is just the rephrasing of the question. ठीक है, इसी को we have just rephrased it. ठीक है, you simply highlight this, the all oppressed sections, and then come to the writings and this. Gulamgiri, शेतकऱ्यांचा सूट is with respect to the farmers. ठीक है, ballads and poems criticizing the Brahman. अब अगर suppose even if you know only two of these things, ठीक है, with respect to the Gulamgiri and शेतकऱ्यांचा सूट, you don't know anything else, what you simply do is, these are his novels. Along with this, in his short essays and poems, ठीक है, अगर स्पेसिफिकली पता भी नहीं है, इफ यू जस्ट नो द फर्स्ट टू, ठीक है, सो इन गुलामगिरी ही टॉक्ड अबाउट द प्लाइट ऑफ द दलित्स एक्सेट्रा. ठीक है, इन शेतकऱ्यांचा सूड ही टॉक्ड अबाउट द प्लाइट ऑफ द पीजेंट्स. प्रिपेयर वन generic points through his articles, essays and poems. ठीक है, he criticized the Brahmanical supremacy or the promoted the rationalism, जो भी पॉइंट है. ठीक है, you can prepare one point on that also. And then if on social reform वही पॉइंट आएंगे, education, women, religious, anti caste, campaign against religious orthodoxy, public wealth movement, same points will be there. Only classification आपको ऐसे करना है या फिर इन दो हेडिंग्स के नीचे ही करना है, that is up to you. Both are fine. ठीक है, and then after that you briefly highlight the limitations. ठीक है, again the limitations, one will be the regional impact. It was limited to the Maharashtra. ठीक है, second कि this belief in the British sense of justice. ठीक है, third कि it couldn't evolve into a mass movement, right? Fourth कि again resistance from the orthodox society, that. Then in conclusion again जो three frameworks हमने दिए थे, one is the influence, second is contemporary relevance, third is the constitution. ना तो उनमें से दो को I have given the linkage. One, influence. So Phule's radical ideas of education, equality, dignity directly shaped the Shahu Maharaj's reservation policies and Ambedkar's Dalit movement. This is the influence based. Okay, this you can give, or the constitution, the Phule's radical ideas on education, equality, dignity are reflected in constitutional provisions related to equality, abolition of untouchability, then social justice and reservation policies. ठीक है, दोनों भी दे सकता हूँ, दोनों में से एक, not both. I'm just giving you the options. ठीक है, so here also with this kind of the conclusion and with this limitations. Again this is static. ठीक है, रैंक होल्डर को भी और दी टॉपर को भी कंटेंट उतना ही रहने वाला है उनके पास. ठीक है, ऑल दे विल नो शेतकऱ्यांचा असूड, गुलामगिरी, सत्यशोधक समाज, स्कूल फॉर दी वुमेन. ये चार मेजर पॉइंट्स ही उनको पता होने वाले हैं. बट दे विल गेट वन एक्स्ट्रा मार्क थ्रू दिस लिमिटेशंस पार्ट एंड दिस कंक्लूजन पार्ट. ठीक है, दैट इज द ओनली थिंग दैट मेक्स द डिफरेंस. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट coming to post independence, trace India's consolidation process during the early phase of independence in terms of polity, economy, education, international relations. Basically what they have asked is the trace. Yeah, so normally when the questions start with the wording like trace or bring out the evolution of something. Okay, so when evolution or trace kind of the directive or the wording is there, we generally try to divide it into the phases. Okay, so phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But in this particular question, the phase approach won't work because what they have asked, trace the consolidation process during the early phase of independence. तो उन्होंने फर्स्ट फेज में ही पूछा है. ठीक है, इफ दे वुड हैव आस्क्ड ट्रेस इंडियाज कंसोलिडेशन प्रोसेस सिंस इंडियाज इंडिपेंडेंस, तो वो फेज वाइज आता. फेज 1 वुड बी दिस बिकॉज ऑफ हाँ, इन टर्म्स ऑफ अगर पॉलिटी पूछते तो फेज 1 लिंग्विस्टिक रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन, फेज 2 राइजिंग रीजनलिज्म, फेज 3 creation of new state based upon administrative and this, and phase 4 current phase demand for the new states. ठीक है, ऑन दैट लाइन्स. बट यहाँ पे इन्होंने फर्स्ट फेज में ही पूछा है तो वो फेज वाइज अप्रोच तो नहीं आएगा. रादर व्हाट यू विल डू इज पॉलिटी, इकोनॉमी, एजुकेशन एंड इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस. ये डायमेंशंस आपको ऑलरेडी दिए हैं. दीज विल बी योर 4 सब हेडिंग्स. उसके नीचे आपके पॉइंट्स आएंगे. यही किया होगा आपने, राइट? उसके बियॉन्ड कुछ नहीं किया होगा. तो एक या डेढ़ आपको एक्स्ट्रा मार्क कैसे मिलेगा इसमें? What extra you can do or you should do in this particular question to get that extra 1.5 mark? That's very easy. सबको पता है वो. Yes. उसकी limitations ठीक है. Limitations also you can give. नहीं. First अर्ली फेज ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस में ही आप पहले चैलेंजेस बताओ इन टर्म्स ऑफ पॉलिटी, इकोनॉमी, एजुकेशन, देन यू टॉक अबाउट द कंसोलिडेशन. सो जैसे दिस क्वेश्चन वाज आल्सो वी हैड asked or predicted this in the advanced test. सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल इन कंसोलिडेशन, ठीक है. Then generally in such questions we suggest to go with the quotes. Okay, one common quote that I always suggested is the with respect to the views of Paul Brass. So according to Paul Brass, India emerged not with the not in the environment of optimism, but rather in the environment of pacifism and freedom, pacifism and fear in terms of the partition. Okay, in this and the then you highlight the role of forefathers. ठीक है, you highlight this his view and that. ठीक है, तो आपका scholar भी आएगा and then you can have the more advanced level of the introduction. ठीक है, or you can talk about this code based question also. A nation is not made overnight but built brick by brick through shared struggles and collective vision. This aptly describes India's early years after independence, when leaders sought to transform the newly freed partition torn country into united democratic and modern nation state. ठीक है, then first before going to the direct the evolution, first highlight the challenges of the newborn nation. This, if you read any of the answer of AIR 5 2020 on Utkarsh Dwivedi, in every question in the history, suppose even if the question is on the what were the consequences or the events during the Quit India movement, even all such questions also after the introduction used to bring out a brief flow chart highlighting the or providing the context, key events leading to the this the Quit India movement. Similarly here also, before going to the evolution, you briefly highlight the challenges. मैंने चार दिए हैं, there is no need to give 4. You can simply make a flow chart in this way. So challenges, polity, इसके नीचे बस 2 briefly दे दो, इकोनॉमी, IR, और एक क्या पूछा है, एजुकेशन. ठीक है, 2 बस दे दो. ठीक है, चैलेंजेस, प्रिंसली स्टेट इंटीग्रेशन, वॉर विद पाकिस्तान 1948, इकोनॉमी की more than 60% of the poverty rate, sorry 90% दे दो. ठीक है, and the frequent famines etc. एग्जाम्पल बंगाल famine दे दो 1943. IR का कोल्ड वॉर, ठीक है, हॉस्टाइल नेबरहुड. एजुकेशन का मोर देन 80% इलिटरेसी रेट. ठीक है, हो सकता है, या फिर लैक ऑफ एजुकेशन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर.
So in the economy can be mentioned that many the fertile area went to the Pakistan like
Yes, you can write. कोई भी 2 लिख दो because that is not the core demand of the question. You can give. Yes. So division of fertile land. You can write. ठीक है, या फिर you can this food, या फिर deindustrialization and food insecurity also you can write. Both of them are fine. So the issues of partition, communal violence, princely states, refugee rehabilitation, linguistic movements, इनमें से कोई भी 2 you can pick. इकोनॉमी में poverty, food insecurity, ठीक है, weak industrial base, education में high literacy rate, limited access to higher education, caste discrimination. IR में Kashmir conflict, border dispute with China, Cold War, and economic aid dependency PL 480 from US. इनमें से कोई भी 2 लिख दो बस, 2 से beyond नहीं. Then consolidation process in terms of polity, simply highlight integration of the princely states. वहाँ पे you should always mention the role of सरदार पटेल प्लस डिफेंस सेक्रेटरी VP मेनन. ठीक है, बहुत 562 जितना प्रिसाइज आप कंटेंट लिख सकते हो, ठीक है, उतना बेटर है. तो ब्रॉड 562 princely states into union. Again you try to use the keywords through instrument of accession, ठीक है, and करके उसके नीचे 3 सब पॉइंट्स लिखो कि हैदराबाद थ्रू मिलिट्री एक्स दिस इंटरवेंशन, ठीक है। देन जूनागढ़ थ्रू रेफरेंडम था या प्लेबिसाइट था, चेक कर लो एक बार ना। वो तो उसके नीचे वो 2 सब पॉइंट्स आएंगे। देन पॉलिटी में adoption of the constitution itself in 1944, so declared India as the sovereign socialist secular democratic republic, ठीक है। देन reorganization of state 1956, उसमें भी थोड़े अगर स्पेसिफिक दे सकते हो तो यू हाईलाइट द क्रोनोलॉजी। सो आंध्र प्रदेश 1956, गुजरात महाराष्ट्र इन 1960, बस ये दो, ठीक है। एंड डेमोक्रेटिक डीपनिंग फर्स्ट जनरल इलेक्शंस इन 1951-52, ठीक है। वैसे अब इसी में इफ यू वांट यू कैन हाईलाइट दी एक सिंगल पॉइंट चैलेंजेस करके लिख सकते हो। तो चैलेंजेस में आप पहला क्या चैलेंज लिख सकते हो कि प्रेसिडेंशियल emergency in Kerala 1956 or 58 something. Second, conflict between the Council of Minister and President over Hindu Code Bill, ठीक है। दो challenges, ठीक है, that also you can write. Then economy, again planning. First plan focused upon the agricultural development. Second, Nehru-Mallovy's plan, and third is land reforms, ठीक है। Then again few keywords, focus upon the infrastructure development, dams as the impulse of modern India by Nehru, ठीक है, वही है। Education, so you again one inclusion into the directive principles, creation of UGC, IITs, AIMS, ठीक है। Then scientific policy resolution, and आपको जो भी कमेटी पता है 1 or 2 committees you can write, ठीक है। In international relations again नाम, then Bandung Conference, then Panchashil principles with respect to the neighbors, ठीक है। 5 principles लिख दो पंचशील के। and global standing champion of decolonization, disarmament, ठीक है। UN peacekeeping, that's it। इसमें भी अगर चाहिए थोड़े limitations, आप in every you can briefly highlight the limitations, ठीक है। then this again इसका भी same framework you can use, you can link it with the contemporary relevance, contemporary relevance, या फिर you can link it with influence aspect में, ठीक है। कि while majority of the post colonial states failed, ठीक है, the efforts of early consolidation contributed to India's contributed to resilience of India's democracy and making India as the mother of democracies, ठीक है, और world's largest democracy. In that way you can highlight the influence of it as well, ठीक है, और give the credit. Again in this answer also कि if you differentiate between the rank holder and topper, average की तो मैं बात ही नहीं कर रहा हूँ, ठीक है। the points will again remain same, कोई ऐसे rocket science वाले points नहीं है। only thing कि how you are using the keywords, कि whether you are mentioning the Panchashil here, whether you are talking about the naam, whether you are talking about disarmament, peacekeeping, right? In education, whether you are talking about IITs, AIMS, University Grant Commission, whether you are providing the DPSP. In economy, whether you are talking about this keyword, temples of modern India. In polity, whether you are mentioning Sardar Patel, VP Menon, ठीक है। then adoption of the constitution and democratic deepening, ये दोनों points सबसे basic है, each and every one of you know, but I can guarantee 99% मेंस लिखने वालों ने ये दोनों मिस किए होंगे। आपने लिखे हैं दोनों भी?
Democratic deepening किसी और तरीके से लिखा है।
नहीं, बट फर्स्ट जनरल इलेक्शन
हाँ, ये लिखा
एंड दिस दोनों लिखे हैं। गुड, यू आर इनटू।
एजुकेशन वाले फील्ड में चैलेंज ये भी हो सकता है कि जब हमने इंडियन पुलिस सर्विस बनाई और इंडियन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सर्विस बनाई तो एक इंडियन टीचिंग सर्विस भी बननी चाहिए थी।
हाँ, तो वो हमारी सरकार होती तो बनाते, वो ब्रिटिश सरकार
में अगर देखना होता था हमें, क्योंकि
नहीं, जो चैलेंजेस उस टाइम के आपको बताने, हाँ ठीक है, लिख सकते थे। बट अगेन IAS एंड IPS वो हमने थोड़ी ना बनाए, वो तो कॉर्नवालिस ने बनाया है।
लेकिन बाद
ठीक है,
में
अगर उसने उस टाइम एजुकेशन वाला भी बना देता तो वो तब तक हम भी वो उसी को कंटिन्यू करते। दैट इज नॉट समथिंग विच वी हैव क्रिएटेड, दैट इज द कॉलोनियल लेगेसी विच वी हैव कैरिड ना। वो तो अभी भी नहीं बना पाए। ठीक है, सो फ्रेंच रिवॉल्यूशन एज द enduring relevance to the contemporary world. Again, इसका भी same introduction will be there कि where you will talk about the French Revolution, the time period. ठीक है, बस just again this also we ask the with respect to the smash FLT advanced test में। अगेन अगर आपको कुछ उसके रिलेटेड इफ यू डोंट हैव एनी कोड्स और द कीवर्ड्स, व्हाट यू सिंपली डू इज you mention the year French Revolution of 1789 was the turning point या फिर watershed movement, watershed movement को डबल कोलन कर दो, in world history, and what began as the revolt against monarchy and feudal privileges become blueprint for modern democracies and rights based governance. Basically significance aspect से you give the introduction, then what they have asked is the French Revolution has enduring relevance to contemporary world. So basically what you have to give, you have to talk about the relevance of it. So relevance in terms of political, economic, social, ideological or philosophical. Right. Relevance in polity, in economics, in society, or at ideological or philosophical level. So in terms में you have to classify the points and highlight the this. ठीक है. So with respect to the political relevance, republicanism, India's republic and France Fifth Republic, universal citizenship, nationalism, secularism, then universal ideas of the human rights. सोशल रिलेवेंस में ह्यूमन राइट्स, जेंडर राइट्स डिस्कोर्स। ठीक है, कि ड्यूरिंग द फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन इटसेल्फ मेरी वॉलस्टोनक्राफ्ट रोट द विंडिकेशन ऑफ राइट्स ऑफ वुमेन, ठीक है, विच सपोर्टेड द यूनिवर्सल फ्रेंचाइज और वोटिंग राइट्स फॉर वुमेन। इकोनॉमिक रिलेवेंस, एबोल्यूशन ऑफ फ्यूडलिज्म, प्रॉपर्टी राइट्स, मिडिल क्लास एम्पावरमेंट। ठीक है, एंड ग्लोबल रिलेवेंस इज एंटी कॉलोनियल मूवमेंट्स और डेमोक्रेटिक मूवमेंट्स। This is the one way of doing it, but more sophisticated or the topper way is you simply make a table. On the left hand side you highlight the revolutionary idea and here you give the more of a contemporary, matlab present, you link it with the present. So just for example, we all know the three core principles of French Revolution are liberty, equality, fraternity. Okay, so French Revolution idea, liberty, which is individual freedoms and abolition of feudal privileges. So it become the basis of fundamental rights, civic liberties. ये points हमने ऊपर लिखा है, right? But what more relevant is, rather than this is more contemporary. So liberty is seen in the digital rights debates. ठीक है, India's right to privacy, Tsunami judgment. ठीक है, with respect to net neutrality, right to be forgotten, those are the digital rights. Basically those are related to liberty. Then equality, with respect to gender equality, Me Too movement, LGBTQ rights, ठीक है, same sex marriage. Then fraternity, so fraternity with respect to the global solidarity during COVID, with respect to the global solidarity for environment, Fridays for the Future or India's Life Mission, or you can also talk about One World, One Sun, One Greed vision of PM Modi. Secularism, so protecting religious freedom in context of growing radicalism, xenophobia, okay, Islamophobia, or ongoing debates on burqa, hijab bans in France, CAA, NRC in India, right? Or challenges in balancing religious freedom with state neutrality. Then popular sovereignty or republicanism. So popular sovereignty, contemporary relevance is people asserting their general will, the concept given by Rousseau through, let's say, Brexit is there, farmer protest is there, or demand for the direct democracy tools like citizen assemblies. Okay. Similarly, republicanism. Okay, so this republicanism may, you can give this example, Barbados becoming the republic in 2021. Okay. Then the idea of the nation states. So जैसे example America first, India's Atmanirbhar Bharat. Similarly, with respect to the society, so social justice ideas, abolition of feudalism was the main reason behind the French Revolution. So here also reflected in global inequality debates, EWS reservation in India. Similarly, Occupy Wall Street against growing inequality. So, and last, it was revolutionary spirit which was seen in Arab Spring, Black Lives Matter, farmers protest. ठीक है? So yeah, this is how you have to link it with the contemporary. So even if you would have classified it under the political, economic, social, revolutionary, in that way also, more sophisticated way is this. Liberty, equality, fraternity, republicanism is everyone knows, then revolution everyone knows, then social justice, abolition of feudalism. 5 तो आपके सब हेडिंग यही पे हो गए, हर किसी के नीचे दो दो भी अगर पॉइंट्स लिख दिए तो यू हैव 10 पॉइंट्स देयर, दैट्स इट. ठीक है. And then you conclude with this. It was a birthplace of modern political ideologies and continue to inspire movements for rights, democracy and secularism. Okay. Okay. From history now to physical geography. Again, the similar question was asked last year itself. The reason behind rising rising sea temperatures or sea level rise. A similar question is there. How are the climate change and the sea level rise affecting very existence of many island nations? Discuss with examples. Again, this is niche topic related to the current. इसमें भी the again it was a predictable topic, so सभी ने mostly prepare किया ही होगा. Everyone or majority of them will be having the content, but the X factor of it is, I also predicted this question. So in FLT 9, so geological processes involved in the formation of different types of islands. How does global warming threatens the islands across the world? So we have also covered it in our FLT. Again, in geography or the climate change related questions, what we suggest is the report or data-based introduction. Yes, normally as per IPCC, project the sea level rise of 0.28 to 1 meters by 2000, threatening the very existence of low-lying island nation by endangering their land livelihood and sovereignty. ठीक है, या फिर इतना भी sufficient है, threatening the very existence of low-lying island nations. This much is also sufficient because you are giving the data and you are linking it with the core theme of the questions. Then this would have been your X factor. If in your answer, if you would have drawn the map highlighting the small island nations, again it was given in our model answer. This would have been the differentiating factor because if you see they are concentrated. ऐसे नहीं है कि बहुत जगह पे वो spread across है. So as they are concentrated, there was a scope to highlight it into the map. ठीक है, यहाँ पे सिंपली आप कैरिबियन दे देते, ये छोड़ो, ये बहरीन, एक मालदीव, सेशल्स, मॉरिशियस, ये हमें पता है, सिंगापुर इज देयर. यहाँ इन सब को could have combined the small Pacific island countries. ठीक है, उतना भी डिटेलिंग सफिशिएंट हो जाता. Now impact of climate change, ठीक है, and sea level rise. Again, to classify the impact, first impact is on their geography, second impact is on their economy, third impact is on their society, fourth impact is on their polity, right? So you can classify the points on the same lines. So geophysical dimensions, loss of land and habitable area. Yeah. Example countries का दे दो, salt water intrusion into the fresh water, creating or contaminating groundwater and creating the water crisis. Which country faced water crisis recently when India provided them with the water? Maldives. You can write that point as the substantiation. Okay. Then ocean acidification endangering coral reefs. These are the from the perspective of geography. Then economic dimension. This is with respect to the loss in terms of GDP, loss in terms of livelihood, and loss because of the disasters. Right. So in terms of GDP, one more is food security. Food security, loss of arable land, coral reef, and decline in fisheries. Okay. Then vulnerability to the extreme weather, loss due to disasters. You can give the any examples. Then debt and fiscal strain, loss in GDP. Okay. Then social dimension, social में climate induced or disaster induced migration. Okay. That. Then social में cultural aspect also you can, threatening the tribal culture in the countries like Marshall Islands, and political sovereignty and legal challenges. So submergence may impact their claims on the exclusive economic zones, right? So in that way, under 4 subheadings, you can generate your points. So geographical impact, economic impact, social impact, political impact, and this cultural impact. Okay. Yes. And then way forward. Again, climate change का way forward देते हुए always we suggest to classify the points under the mitigation and adaptation. ठीक है. So with respect to mitigation, one, promote renewable energy, blue carbon solutions, या फिर you can also talk about nature based solutions, use of the keywords protect mangrove, seagrass, coral reef. एग्जाम्पल एक कोई भी स्कीम का दे दो मैंग्रोव के रिलेटेड, या फिर मैंग्रोव फॉर द फ्यूचर, दैट एज ए एग्जाम्पल यू कैन यूज. एंड एडाप्टेशन स्ट्रेटजीज, इंटरनेशनल फाइनेंसिंग एंड planned relocation, and this community based disaster response you can talk about. Okay, that. And again conclusion, one keyword which we had suggested in smash is triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss and pollutions. Okay, so to confront triple planetary crisis, island nation must be supported through global solidarity, so to secure their survival and sustainability. Okay, so remember this keyword, triple planetary crisis. Then again, this is one static. It was also linked to the current affairs. Recently, the earthquake in Russia led to the tsunami. So that, and but this is a completely static. What are tsunamis? Only thing that you need to remember, which majority of the aspirant fails to understand, or which is the differentiating factor, is wherever they ask this, what are tsunamis, or what do you understand, what do you mean? Again, such questions, this is your core demand, right? Because this is the specifically they have asked. So in such questions, by default, the definition becomes your introduction. But this demand is not completely addressed just by introduction. So core demand आप 3 लाइन में कभी भी address नहीं कर सकते. So always remember कि जब भी ये पूछते हैं, so by default definition becomes your introduction, but after that briefly you using a diagrammatic representation give its features, और अगर कोई प्रोविजंस होंगे या कोई कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स होंगे या कोई क्राइटेरिया होंगे व्हाटएवर, ठीक है, इलैबोरेट अपॉन दैट कंसेप्ट ब्रीफली. ठीक है. सो व्हाट आर सुनामीज, हाउ एंड वेयर दे आर फॉर्म्ड, व्हाट आर देयर कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस. ठीक है. सो इम्पैक्ट अगेन की वर्ल्ड सुनामी कम्स फ्रॉम द जापानीज सू हार्बर नामी वेव. It is series of large ocean waves caused by sudden displacement of large volume of water. So then we are providing the key characteristics of tsunami. You can use it a diagrammatic representation. तभी आपका first demand completely address हो जाएगा. What are tsunamis? Simply if you give the definition and if you go to the next demand of the question, then you won't get full marks here. ठीक है, उसके basic characteristics you बताओ कि wavelength, period, speed, amplitude, then wave train, Stirling effect and energy. ठीक है, then how they are formed, this you can address it using the diagram also. And causes of tsunami, earthquake, this is the recent one. Again, what I would have done is, this example is fine, but this example I would have put it into, suppose this is margin, I would have added into this. Yeah, it would have enhanced the visibility because ये काफी recent है, अभी last month का ही है. ठीक है, so I would have added it rather than adding it as a point, I would have added it in the box. उसका visibility बढ़ जाता. ठीक है, and then उसके reasons तो you know, earthquake, volcanic eruption, landslides, then you have glacial calvings or the meteor impact or asteroid impact. ठीक है, and where they are formed, this is the map. So basically आपका पूरा जितना भी coastline है, mostly that is vulnerable to the tsunami. ठीक है, maximum Pacific ring of fire आपका जो है, that will be the most vulnerable. Yes, and then consequences. One more thing that we taught in the smash is कि whenever they ask you the impact, ठीक है, or consequences, first thing that you have to think is the classification into positive and negative is possible. ठीक है, majority of the things have the positive impacts as well as the negative impacts. जैसे suppose forget about tsunamis, but if they would have asked you the what are the consequences of volcanoes, ठीक है, 90% what they would do, they will highlight the negative consequences of it, but there are few positive consequences also, right, with respect to the this climate change, ठीक है, reduction in albedo. Second is with respect to the soil formation. No, दो तीन है positive. ठीक है, always think whether you can classify it under positive or negative. ये सुनामी के केस में positive possible नहीं है, so don't forcefully write, it is not mandatory. I'm just giving you the framework. And then consequences, again same, economic consequences, environmental consequences, social consequences. ठीक है, then this nuclear risk because of the Fukushima, and psychological impact because it is a disaster, right? So economic consequences, human casualties and displacement, high death toll due to sudden impact, economic losses, Japan tsunami, this environmental impact, coastal ecosystems damaged, coastal ecosystem, mangroves, coral reef, soil salination, loss of biodiversity, nuclear and industrial risk, Fukushima nuclear plant meltdown, social psychological effects. ठीक है, अब as the question already has 4 demands, ठीक है, 1 2 3 4, ठीक है, and it is a 10 marker question, तो वे फॉरवर्ड देने का आपके पास स्पेस भी नहीं होगा, स्कोप भी नहीं होगा. What you will be doing is you will be concluding your answer with the way forward. ठीक है, it needs to be minimized through advanced early warning systems, satellite based monitoring, AI driven risk modeling and global data sharing. इनमें से दो भी दिए तो भी sufficient है. No need to use of the keywords, nothing. Rather simply do it with the way forward. ठीक है, ऐसे. And consciously I haven't used the SDG in many of the answers. ठीक है, because that has been the common use in the conclusion. ठीक है, आप वो टॉपर लेवल भी, टॉपर तो छोड़ो, दैट इज यूजिंग द एसडीजी इज नॉट इवन द रैंक होल्डर लेवल, ठीक है, वो तो एवरेज लेवल पे अब आ गया बिकॉज एवरीवन इज डूइंग इट, ठीक है. तो रादर देन दैट वी आर ट्राइंग टू go with bit innovation in the conclusions. Then discuss how the changes in shape and sizes of the continents and ocean basins of the planet takes place due to the tectonic movements of the crustal masses. Basically, this is related to the plate tectonics. Again, this question I predicted correctly. In FLT7, I asked how far can the theory of plate tectonics be used to explain the origin and distribution of major geological features across the Earth's surface. What are the geological features? Ocean basins and continents. Okay, so with respect to plate tectonics, the demand of the question was similar. Then again, what you will, the introduction will be the Earth crust. So Earth's lithosphere is divided into tectonic plates that float over astrosphere, and their movements continuously reshape continents and ocean basin. Again, rephrasing of the question by linking it to the theme. This is explained by plate tectonics theory. Okay, and then changes in shape and size. Again, the three subheadings will be, four subheadings will be there. One, divergent boundary, convergent boundary, and transform boundary. Okay, so divergent boundary, sea floor spreading, rifting, formation of ridges and fracture zones, and volcanic island chains. Okay, simply you just need to add the examples. Okay. Then this is convergent boundary. You can use a single डायग्राम या फिर हर किसी को डाइवर्जेंट बाउंड्री कन्वर्जेंट एंड ट्रांसफॉर्म के यू कैन यूज दी थ्री डिफरेंट डायग्राम्स आल्सो, ठीक है. सो कन्वर्जेंट बाउंड्री, orogeny, that is mountain building, subduction and trench formation, Mariana Trench, volcanic arcs, closing of seas, ठीक है, जैसे तेतिया seas, transform boundaries, lateral displacement of the crust, St. Andreas fault. Then long-term continental drift, so breakup and merging of the supercontinent, जैसे Pangea, this broke down into the different continents, and again it was supposed to come together in the form of this Pangea Proxima in near future. And then again, just going bit beyond the demand, discuss how changes in shape and sizes takes place due to tectonic movements. Okay, so what we will be doing for that extra 1 mark? So beyond the tectonic movement, the changes in the continent and ocean basins also takes place due to this volcanism, mantle plumes, glaciation, and isostatic rebound. So for example, ice sheets when they melt, okay, that uplifts the land and creates the or shifts the coastlines. Okay. Then volcanism, Hawaiian Island, sea level changes due to the climate change, etc. वही हमने जो previous answer लिखा है, ठीक है, that. And then again one framework for the conclusion that we give for the physical geography is use of the or the utility, that is understanding. Okay. So understanding the processes involved in the plate tectonics not only explains Earth past but also prepares us to visualize its future landscape and evolving continental order. Okay, so basically the utility of understanding that particular process. Then coming to the economic geography, again for economic geography we have stressed enough because last year also they asked the questions from the static subject only. Okay, so the class 12th NCERTs, human geography and India and its people, ठीक है, एक बार अच्छे से पढ़ लो just for the sake of conceptual clarity. ठीक है. So what are non-farm primary activities? How are these activities related to the physiographic features in India? Discuss with suitable examples. So again, what they have asked is what are non-farm primary activities. So by default, definition becomes your introduction, and apart from definition, the features of it, right? So what are non-farm primary activities? What are primary activities basically? So primary activities are basically the activities which are directly related to the environment, okay, which involve little of the value addition or which involves the extraction of the natural resources. So non-farm primary activities are the economic activities of primary sector that does not involve crop farming but rely on direct exploitation of natural resources. So direct exploitation of natural resources is primary activities. Okay, these includes animal rearing, fishing, forestry, mining, and quarrying. Okay, this is your definition part, the introduction. Then key features of primary activities. Okay, so direct dependence on nature, first stage of production, little value addition, right? Then extensive land use, seasonal dependence, then again labor intensive. चार या पांच भी अगर आपको याद आ गए, if you are able to draw the flow chart, that will be more than sufficient. ठीक है, I think it is also a 10 marker question. 10 marker ही है, तो ज़्यादा elaborate करने की भी ज़रूरत नहीं है. Key features, ठीक है, and then relation to the physiographic features. Again, if you see, the question has asked the linkage between two things. One is the how non-farm primary activities are related to the physiographic features. So linkage between non-farm primary activities and physiographic features. Okay, so again your structure can be two-way structure. One, you make non-farm primary activities as subheading and you highlight how it is related to the different physiographic features, or you make physiographic features as subheading and you highlight which non-farm primary activities take place in that particular region. No, जैसे one way of doing it, relation to physiographic features. So animal rearing, so relief and climate decide type of livestock. For example, sheep and goat in Thar desert, yak in Ladakh, camel in Rajasthan arid zone, dairy farming in Indo-Gangetic plains. ठीक है, दो भी याद आ गए तो भी sufficient है. या फिर you can use a flow chart. Second, fishing, coastal ecology, deltas and the rivers determine, that is the physiography determine the marine and inland fisheries. Example, marine fishing along Konkan Malabar coast, prawn culture in Chilika Lake, okay, and riverine fishing in Brahmaputra and Ganga basins. Then forestry. So forestry may be different type, teak in Western Ghats, cheer pine Himalaya, lac in Chota Nagpur, bamboo in Northeast. Mining and quarrying, तो ये भी इंडिया के जो भी माइनिंग के रीजन्स है, यू कैन हाईलाइट दोज, यू कैन ऐड अ मैप आल्सो. ठीक है, छोटा सा मैप करके मैपिंग भी दिखा सकते हो. देन सॉल्ट प्रोडक्शन along arid coastal plains, pearl and coral collection and gathering and hunting basically in the tribal areas of the central India and the northeast India. ठीक है, that is the one way of doing it. Second, you make physiographic features as your subheading. वहाँ पे जो भी नॉन प्राइमरी एक्टिविटीज होते हैं, नॉन एग्रीकल्चर प्राइमरी एक्टिविटीज होते हैं, you can list down those. So mountain and highlands, animal rearing, forestry, plantation, mining. Then plateaus, plains, coastal regions, desert and arid regions. Both are fine. ठीक है, वैसे. And then conclusion, you briefly highlight the significance. ठीक है, तो significance is non-farm primary activities highlight the direct relationship between the livelihood and this geography. So direct interdependence of livelihood and geography. ठीक है, it was also a simple question, only one way, both the ways are fine. The X factors in this particular answer are majority will miss these key features. ठीक है, लिखे आपने. And second is the map, mining and querying में. ठीक है, these two, ये दोनों चीजें भी अगर आपने की होगी तो rather than 5 you will end up with 6 because this is static, इसमें कुछ नहीं है. Okay, so explain briefly ecological and economic benefits of solar energy generation in India with suitable examples. Again, this is a simple question. No, इसमें as such कोई difficulty as such नहीं है. And basically what they have asked is the explain. So what we will be doing is we will be using 70-30, where 70% weightage will go to the significance or the benefits of it. ठीक है, remaining 30% we will simply draw a table highlighting challenges and way forward. है ना, तो what will be the introduction? Normally in renewable energy question, okay, what we suggest is you start your answer again with the data highlighting the potential. What is the solar energy potential of India? It is 748 gigawatt. And what is the present solar energy generation capacity? It's I think around 100 or 110 gigawatt. Okay. Facts has to be on your fingertips. So in FLT also I had asked the question, rather than specifically on the solar energy, I asked on the overall renewable energy transition, opportunities and barriers in scaling up renewable energy infrastructure in India. Okay. And again, this is also the direct PYQ reflection. Then with respect to the potential, India being a tropical country with 300 sunny days annually and high solar insolation, okay, has immense potential for solar energy. Okay, that can be your introduction. Second can be the contextual introduction. If the Prime Minister has inaugurated any of the recent solar power plant, okay, or India's overall ranking. What is India's ranking with respect to the solar? Third, right? And वो अभी third हुई है, I think. India surpassed Japan, na? Right. So recently India surpassed Japan to become the third largest solar power producing country in the world, highlighting India's commitment to the this green transition. A contextual introduction also you can give. This one also you can give. Now again, ये भी कोई difficult question as such नहीं है. Ecological significance, economic significance, this is very easy. Okay. What X factors that you can bring is, one is fact file. So after you give the introduction, so this is your margin. So if you read the answers of I think last year, Medha Anand, year 13, because she had very good marks in GS papers. Okay. So along the margins, simply make a box, write a fact file, put 2 facts. Okay, this we used in fact file. Second, कि way forward देते देते along with the way forward एक box करके हम government steps taken भी briefly 2-3 बता देते थे. What that used to do is कि वो visibility बढ़ती थी, presentation अच्छा होता था, and second हमारे X factor वो evaluator पढ़ता भी था. ठीक है, because of the innovation, क्योंकि जो presentation wise the things that you bring into your answers, ठीक है, evaluator को वो देखना ही है, because that is the difference between your answer and the answers of others. So different factor उसका attention जाता ही है, right? So fact file just 2, India ranks third with capacity 1.08 gigawatt. 1.08 नहीं, 108 है, ठीक है, that's a mistake from our side. It's 108, I think. And India's solar energy potential stands at 748 gigawatt. Now you come to the ecological benefits. So this is your one X factor. Okay. The second X factor is 70-30 approach, where ecological benefits, economic benefits के बाद, before going to the conclusion, briefly highlight the challenges and way forward. ठीक है, टेबल करो, दो दो ही दे दो, सफिशियंट है, ज़्यादा वेटेज उसको नहीं देना है, because that is not the demand of the question. So we are going beyond the demand of the question, but we are careful enough to restrict that to the maximum of 10% of the space. ठीक है, जैसे आदित्य श्रीवास्तव का भगत सिंह वाला क्वेश्चन मैंने दिखाया था, right? So if you read any of his answers, irrespective of the directive of the question, he has covered that particular theme comprehensively by highlighting the issues way forward. But he was mindful enough of the weightage that he is giving to the each part. ठीक है, and again high import dependence, land acquisition issues, ठीक है, then intermittency or the transmission or storage issues. वही दो तीन पॉइंट लिखो. Way forward domestic manufacturing, then decentralized solar generation. ठीक है, एग्जाम्पल पीएम कुसुम दे दो. पीएम कुसुम भी है, सोलार, हाँ वही कोई तो है ना, मुफ्त बिजली नहीं, हाँ सूर्यघर बिजली योजना, दैट स्कीम यू मेंशन. ठीक है, एंड स्टोरेज इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, स्ट्रेंथन ग्रीन एनर्जी कॉरिडोर्स. बस ज़्यादा टाइम भी नहीं लगेगा. राइट, नाउ कमिंग टू द कोर डिमांड, इकोलॉजिकल बेनिफिट्स. अगेन इकोलॉजिकल मतलब एनवायरमेंटल पर्सपेक्टिव से कौन से बेनिफिट्स आएंगे? वन, रिडक्शन इन डिपेंडेंस ऑन फॉसिल फ्यूल. Second, low carbon emission or low pollution levels. What will be the third? ठीक है, so pollution आपका कम हो गया तो it will lead to the air quality improvement. ठीक है, fourth, water conservation. So because if you go for the solar, that will come at the cost of thermal. So compared to thermal power plants, solar energy generation is comparatively waterless, right? Then reduce land pressure through innovative deployment, जैसे rooftop और decentralized generation और this की canal top solar और floating solar. right? Example आपका गुजरात नर्मदा canal top solar दे सकते हो, या rooftop के लिए you can give the example of कोची airport. right, 100% solar airport है ना वो, that. Then last, contributes to India's climate commitments. What are India's key climate commitments? 50% energy through non-fossil fuel by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2070. वही दे दो. right, 5 पॉइंट्स आपके आराम से आएंगे. और रिडक्शन इन एनर्जी यूसेज इन एग्रीकल्चर, तो पीएम कुसुम है आपका, वही हो गए. ठीक है, बस. देन इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट्स. सो इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट्स में वन, रिडक्शन इन इंपोर्ट. सेकेंड, इकोनॉमी का और कौन सा एस्पेक्ट होता है? रिडक्शन इन इंपोर्ट, एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन. राइट, व्हाट एल्स? किसका ग्रोथ? ग्रोथ कैसे? Again, you link it with the different aspects of the economy. No? You can link it with the manufacturing sector. You can link it with the rural development sector. ठीक है, rural development as in decentralized generation. ठीक है, you can link it with the promotion of research and development or the entrepreneurship with respect to the renewable energy in India. You can link it with the export. ठीक है, India's this global efforts through the International Solar Alliance can promote this exports, right? And then infrastructure development also. Through the example, you can give the green energy corridors. वही points आएंगे. तो one, energy security, reducing imports. Second, job creation. Third, rural empowerment. right, PM Kusum reduce diesel dependence. Fourth, boost to domestic manufacturing. Fifth, foreign exchange savings. Sixth, infrastructure development along with the mega solar parks, right? And energy access and decentralization. And the end, briefly challenge way forward and conclusion. Okay. And is the backbone of India's path towards green growth and energy transition. Again, if you want to bring in more sophistication into this particular answer, ठीक है, अगर ये 15 मार्कर होता तो I would have suggested it. 10 मार्कर के लिए जरूरत नहीं है, but then also you try to remember this map. It highlights India's top 10 solar power plants. Is particular में there is no need because we are already bringing fact file and limitations and challenge way forward. But again, this is so just add it into your notes. Okay. Then next, geographical explanation of the distribution of offshore oil reserves of the world. How are they different from onshore occurrences of oil reserves? Again, this is a recurrent theme in the UPSC. Basically, the distribution of the natural resources. Okay, every year there is at least one question on the distribution of the natural resources. I was expecting a question with respect to the rare earth minerals, with respect to the critical minerals. Okay, so I asked the question on those. UPSC asked the question on the oil reserves. So I had covered that particular question in the basic test. So smash 25 basic test. Location of various petroleum and crude resources in India and the world. Steps taken by the government to make India self-sufficient. But again, distribution part at least I have covered in the basic test. Then introduction. Again, petroleum reserved are found in the sedimentary basins where organic matter is trapped under the pressure. And if you have the basic idea, you would have given the difference between the offshore and onshore into your introduction. The data with respect to that. The offshore reserves discovered since mid 20th century now account for 30% of the global crude oil production. Okay. This and major offshore, again remember this, the resource distribution is one of the key theme. Okay, if you go through our updated X factor of the economic geography, we have tried to cover maximum of the resources. The framework that we suggest when they ask you distribution in the world, okay, one mistake that the aspirants do is this limited to the map. Okay, what we suggest is if it is a 15 marker question, you draw a map, but after the map also you give the brief elaboration of itself, and if possible go into the precision. Okay, जैसे if you see in the here, what you are doing is Gulf of, you are simply highlighting the major reason. ठीक है, but यहाँ पे if possible you go into the bit more precision कि अगर minerals वगैरह है तो उनके mines के name अगर आपको पता होंगे तो you mention those mines names, or what you can mention is their total share. ठीक है, total percentage अगर आपको पता होगा तो वो that can bring in more precision, that will occupy your space also. ठीक है, तो major offshore oil regions again North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Middle East, Asia, Australia. ठीक है, इनके सिर्फ स्पेसिफिक आपको रीजंस मेंशन करने. These are the difference. So one is with respect to the location. Onshore जो होते हैं they are into the continents, ठीक है, और the interior of the continents. Offshore जो होते हैं they are found in the continental shale slope or the deep sea basins. Then geological setting, they are found in the rift basins or old sedimentary rocks, whereas offshore are found in the marine sedimentary deposits. Then exploration, so the onshore is easier for the exploration because they are land based. Yeah, offshore requires a complex technology. Then again, as technology is easier, here it is difficult. The cost of extraction becomes cheaper. It is highly capital intensive. ठीक है. Then environmental risks are minimum, maximum. बाकी geopolitics reserves you can talk about. ठीक है. Yes, and as we have highlighted, provided this data into the introduction based upon that only, because the core demand of the question was comparison. So we will again conclude with the comparison perspective only. No? While onshore reserves dominate historically, offshore reserves are growing in importance, representing the future frontier of global petroleum geography. These are the factual ones. We can't do much about it. But again, if you see in the PYQs also, okay, India has the substantial reserves of shale oil gas. Already on this particular theme itself, they have asked it multiple times. So even if you have done the PYQs thoroughly, you could have answered this question in a decent way. Then this is the second random question. How can artificial intelligence and drones be effectively used along with GIS and RS techniques in location of aerial planning? Okay. So basically here what you have to do, you need to understand the important keywords. So what are the first keyword is AI, second drone, third GIS RS techniques, and fourth aerial planning. So what is the core theme of this particular question or the micro theme of this question? It is related to the land use planning. Right. So yeah. So what are the core components of land use planning? Land use planning, where do you do the land use planning? Yes. For urbanization, for industrialization, for mineral extraction, for infrastructure development. What else? For agriculture. Right. So these are the components of land use planning. No. Then on the basis of that itself, you will prepare your points. Second, what are the component or what are the key features of AI? Yes, or what are the key benefits of AI?
Sir, should we have to go to serial wise, or we can have other means? First, can we explain rule, then come to AI or this?
That's fine. With respect to, I'm just giving you first the framework or for the brainstorming. Okay. So what are the key features or benefits of AI? ठीक है. Give me the keywords. One is the predictive analysis, right? Second, or predictive analysis or forecasting. Second, evidence-based decision making. ठीक है. Third, ठीक है. But predictive analysis हो गया. हाँ? नहीं, ease of business. Cost effective. Yes. So, see, what you can do is predictive analysis or what you can see is forecasting. Right. What else it do? Data analysis brings standardization and consistency. Third, AI also brings personalization or customization. Right. Fourth, cost effective, cost and time effective. What else? Similarly, for drones is used for surveillance and monitoring. Right. Then drone, sorry, disaster, not prediction, but response.
Survey.
Yes, survey. वो तो यहाँ पे आ गया आपका land use planning में agriculture. On the basis of this itself, you have to prepare your points. Right. So basically, what you are doing is land use planning के components, drones के components या फिर drones के features and AI के features. You are only brainstorming upon those, and all these three are the core themes. Now, land use planning is also the core micro theme. AI is also core micro theme. Drones is also core micro theme. All you have to do is know their important features. इतना भी अगर आपको keywords पता होता, you would have been able to generate the decent points with keywords, even though no substantiation. Right? वैसे so substantiation के लिए you could have simply used few of these schemes. जैसे with respect to drones, you have drone didi initiative, right? Then with respect to predictive analysis of the AI, you can talk about disaster prediction, or the simply move to bring more precision prediction with respect to the droughts, ठीक है, or drought prediction. No. Then data analysis में you can talk about the land records, ठीक है. One more is the evidence based policy making, that also you could have talked, right? So now if you see the answer, it was not direct hit, but somewhat close to it. India's land reform efforts have focused on the technological solutions in recent times. Okay? Though they have improved land administration, failed to address structural challenges. So basically, I asked about the technological challenges in the land reforms or the land use planning. No? So again, अब इसके लिए you don't have any current related introduction or that. So as land use planning is the core theme, you need to have the definition of it. You can simply start with the definition of land use planning. So land use planning is a systematic assessment of land and water potential, alternatives for the land use, and socio-economic conditions to select and adopt the best land use options. Right, so you can go with the definition based introduction, and then you provide one connecting statement, that is integration of technology makes land use and aerial planning more accurate, dynamic and evidence based. Right, so you give the definition, you provide a connecting statement. Then again we are dividing it into the use of AI along with GIS and RS. Second, use of drones along with GIS and RS. These are going to be our two subheadings. So one, use of AI along with GIS and RS. Then automated land use classification. Right, so land use planning के लिए you need classification. So then GIS and RS किस लिए use होता है? So AI processes satellite imagery and GIS layers, okay, for accurate land mapping. Example, ISRO Fasal project for crop classification. Second, predictive. Already we have talked about the point, predictive analysis, right? So predictive, we are linking it with the theme of the land planning. So predictive urban growth modeling, right? So to predict the future growth of the metro cities and planning accordingly. Example, the transit oriented growth models, right? Yes. Yes. Then disaster risk assessment, okay, using RS hazard maps and GIS to predict floods, landslides, drought. Right. Yes, and then you can give the any generic examples also. ठीक है, उत्तराखंड की जगह यू कैन ऑल्सो गिव द हिमाचल ऑल्सो. ठीक है, देन रिसोर्स ऑप्टिमल यूज ऑफ द रिसोर्सेस और रिसोर्स ऑप्टिमाइजेशन, जैसे अपने कॉस्ट एंड टाइम इफेक्टिवनेस का, बेसिकली द कीवर्ड इज रिसोर्स ऑप्टिमाइजेशन. ठीक है, देन क्लाइमेट चेंज एंड एनवायरमेंटल मॉनिटरिंग एंड एग्रीकल्चर फूड सिक्योरिटी. So basically what we are doing is the features of AI and the components of land planning, that is agriculture, environment, disaster, urban planning, okay, industrial planning, all those we are integrating and we are generating our dimensions. So for agriculture, for environment, for this disaster, for urbanization, these are four. Then with respect to features of AI, this risk predictive analysis, then this is basically the data analysis, and third is efficiency, bringing efficiency and consistency. So based upon that we can generate the points. Same with the AI, same with the drones. So drones can be used for high resolution mapping. Just we are substantiating using the one of the government scheme, स्वामित्व स्कीम हो गई, या फिर लैंड रिकॉर्ड मॉडर्नाइजेशन स्कीम हो गया, या पीएम फसल बीमा योजना हो गया, कि वेयर यू डू द रिस्क असेसमेंट यूजिंग द ड्रोन्स और द फोटोज, राइट. सो वही स्कीम्स आप यूज करो. देन 3D सिटी एंड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मॉडल्स अगेंस्ट विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू अर्बनाइजेशन, जैसे ड्रोन इमेजरी कंबाइंड विथ GIS builds digital twins of cities. Basically it is a 3D model. Then real time disaster monitoring, precision agriculture, यहाँ पे भी drones being under not PM Kusum. This is basically drone Didi. Here drone Didi scheme, right? That, and then asset and environmental monitoring. Again, mix of the features of the drones or the functions of the drones and the different sections where they are applicable. So functional plus sectional approach. Okay, so agriculture, environment, urbanization. You can also talk about the forestry to use for the this real time monitoring on the disasters like forest fires, right? That. Then again, challenges and way forward. So challenges: high cost of technology, skill gap, then regulatory hurdles. So basically what we do is we use the staple framework. S as in structural, T as in technological. So technological means data quality and integration. Administrative means regulatory cholesterol, that is DGCA strict norms. Okay. P as in policy perspective, so privacy and security concerns. L as in legal, ठीक है, so legal तो यहाँ पे नहीं है, and E as in economic or environmental. So economic में you have high cost of technology and skill gap. Okay, normally in GS3 also or in GS1 also. Okay, we generate the points using the staple framework. Okay, so when you have to generate the points in a quick manner, okay, this kind of the frameworks helps. Either staple or you can use the PIES framework also. Policy perspective, institutional perspective, economic perspective, social perspective. Okay, and then similarly, whatever the challenges you have mentioned, you mention the corresponding way forwards. Okay.
Integration through approaches or favorable or how to do argument.
कहाँ पे? See, to give the arguments, every point has three aspects basically. ठीक है. The one is the subheading, which will be or which will come from the components or through the frameworks. ठीक है. Second part is the elaboration and third part is the substantiation. Your yes, elaboration part is easy. So real time disaster monitoring. अब यहाँ पे this itself is your subheading plus elaboration. इसके आगे ये अगर नहीं भी दिया तो भी चलेगा because of the word limit that you face ना. So while writing the actual answer, this is self-explanatory. You follow the Shruti Sharma way. You read the answers of Shruti Sharma. You will find in her answers that there is no elaboration. She had just expanded her subheading and made it self-explanatory and then directly substantiated her point. So what you do, real-time disaster monitoring, you skip this entire part. You simply give drone deployment in Assam floods over evacuation mapping. Okay, now समझ तो आ रहा है ना, point is self-explanatory. Right? You do in this way. ठीक है. ठीक है. Again, the approach, functional and sectional approach. So AI के functions क्या क्या है और significance क्या है, automation, data driven decision making, predictive analysis, personalization, accuracy and precision, enhanced efficiency and productivity. ठीक है. Sections, agriculture, urbanization, industries, disaster, etc. Drones के भी real time surveillance imaging, high resolution mapping, spatial data collection, right? Access to difficult or hazardous terrain and rapid deployment. यही points आप याद रखो. On any question, even if they link you the AI with any other theme, suppose they ask you how can AI help in improving the healthcare sector in India? Again, same points will come. How it will improve healthcare sector? Data-driven decision making, automation of the tasks. Then predictive analytics and forecasting with respect to pandemics. So then personalization, so improving the quality of the care. And this collecting the data of this patients. Then accuracy and precision with respect to the what you can say, with respect to diagnostics, and prescription, and efficiency and productivity. वही पॉइंट्स आएंगे आपके. ठीक है. और यूज ऑफ ड्रोन्स अगर उन्होंने पूछा इन एनी अदर सेक्टर, इन डिजास्टर, यही पॉइंट्स आएंगे. ठीक है. सो ऑल यू नीड टू डू इज टू अंडरस्टैंड द कंपोनेंट्स और द फंक्शंस ऑफ द पर्टिकुलर थीम. ठीक है. डिस्कस द डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन एंड डेंसिटी ऑफ पॉपुलेशन इन Ganga river basin with special reference to land, soil and water resources. Again, this is completely static question from the NCERT. बाकी किसी में आपको ये मिलेगा भी नहीं. This is just in class 12th NCERT. Again, if you see, this is the one of the simple question. So basically the question is on the population density. What you will be doing is you will be starting your answer with ठीक है, वन सिंपल डेटा कि इंडिया दिस इज द मोस्ट populous country और इंडिया became the most populous country by passing China in लास्ट ईयर हुए थे ना 2024. ठीक है. विथ हाईएस्ट डेंसिटी इन दी गंगा ब्रह्मपुत्र रिवर बेसिन्स. ठीक है. दैट कैन बी योर कॉमन इंट्रोडक्शन. देन आफ्टर दैट अब गंगा रिवर बेसिन के मेजर इश्यूज यूपीएससी हैज ऑलवेज आस्क्ड. ठीक है. लास्ट ईयर ऑल्सो द गंगाटिक वैली की ग्राउंड वाटर पोटेंशियल दे हैड आस्क्ड. ठीक है. सो नेक्स्ट ईयर दे माइट आस्क द क्वेश्चन ऑन द ब्रह्मपुत्र वैली और द ब्रह्मपुत्र बेसिन और द इंडस बेसिन. ठीक है. उसके कुछ भी पूछ सकते हैं. द डिजास्टर वल्नरेबिलिटी दे कैन आस्क, वाटर अवेलेबिलिटी they can ask, population density they can ask, cropping pattern they can ask, biodiversity or forestry they can ask. But major rivers के basins की conceptual understanding you need to have, be it Ganga river basin, Brahmaputra river basin, Indus river basin or the peninsular river basins including Krishna and Godavari. ठीक है. That. So one way of introduction is the generic way is India became the most populous country by passing China in 2024 with highest population densities in Ganga and Brahmaputra river basins. Or second, if you have this data, you can start with the data-based introduction also. Ganga river basin spread across 11 states, covering 26% of the area and 40% of the population. But second, you can add this map highlighting the Ganga river basin. ये निकला है map. Good. ठीक है. Then what you have been asked is the distribution and density of population in Ganga river basin. So first, river basin ko you classify into the upper Ganga, middle Ganga, lower Ganga, and you highlight this density. So upper Ganga basin, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, low density and settlements are concentrated in valleys, Haridwar, Dehradun. Middle Ganga basin, UP, Bihar, high density because extensive alluvial plains, fertile soils, perennial water availability. Then cities like Kanpur, Lucknow, Patna show urban industrial concentration. And lower Ganga basin, extremely high density, especially in the deltaic plains, fertile or deltaic alluvium soil, water, proximity to ports. ठीक है, ये पहले उसको डिवाइड करो, and then again role of land, soil and water resources. ठीक है, so land, again alluvial plains, favorable relief and deltaic land advantage. Okay, so basically alluvial plains, flat fertile plains provide ideal condition for dense settlement. Second, fertility of the soil provides for the different types of the cropping pattern. Okay, rice, jute, fisheries. And soil resources, highly fertile alluvium, Kisson Gandak plains known as India's granary belt. Okay, then diverse soil types, Khadar and Bhangar. So Khadar is for rice, wheat, sugarcane, Bhangar for orchards and pulses. Okay, and high agricultural productivity. Then water resources में भी river आएगा, irrigation आपका canal system आएगा राजस्थान वगैरह का, and then ground water level आएगा. ठीक है, ऐसे. ठीक है. In conclusion, Ganga river basin is India's population heartland and थोड़ा way forward type. Ensuring the sustainable management of the resources is key to ensure balance, livelihood security with ecological health. Or you can link it with the SDG also. ठीक है. Now coming to the society. First, how does a smart city in India address issue of urban poverty and distributive justice? Okay. Now there are two approaches. The one is if so there are two ways. One is you can segregate the points for these two. ठीक है, कि urban poverty and distributive justice. One caution that we always suggest is if you feel segregating the points under two subheadings, it will lead to the overlap of the points. ठीक है, बहुत जगह पे we have already, जैसे GIS वाले क्वेश्चन में we segregated the points under drones and AI. ठीक है, because there was no overlapping. No, but here in poverty and distributive justice, there may be the overlapping of the points. Okay? So it is not mandatory to segregate the points or segregate the headings. It depends. If you don't have the overlapping points, then only go for the segregation. Otherwise, make a simple single heading. Okay? Just remember this. Now this is again a simple. How does a smart city address issues of poverty and distributive justice? The majority of the aspirants, what they would do is they will introduce with data on urbanization, and then they will directly talk about how smart city tackles the problem of poverty and distributive justice. Hmm. Punjab specific you can't talk. You have to talk about the city specific. तो दिल्ली you can talk, चंडीगढ़ अगर है तो you can talk. वैसे state specific you can't give the point. ठीक है. So normally what they will do is after the introduction they will directly come to the core demand. How smart city addresses issue of poverty and distributive justice. But before that, you give the data on the issue of poverty and distributive justice. Then only you go to the how it addresses, right? If you see, again it was predicted. So in FLT9 I asked the question, while cities are engines of growth, they are also spaces of exclusion. It's basically spaces of poverty and injustice. Okay? Or how rapid urbanization has contributed to socioeconomic inequalities. So again, introduction is data-based. As per census, urban population is 377 million, 31% of the population. And as per Niti Aayog, it was expected to rise to 40% by 2030 and 50% by 2047. And then there are 2 to 3 themes. Urbanization का एक है, poverty का एक है, distributive justice का एक है. So we can give only one fact, right? We have another fact related to poverty also. So simply we will use that box thing. No, and we will add a fact file. So here we will give the fact on poverty. ठीक है, ये वाला fact.
There is any scope of defining the distributive justice and urban poverty introduction.
Then introduction बहुत बड़ा हो जाएगा ना आपका. अब अर्बन पॉवर्टी को क्या ही डिफाइन करोगे? Same thing the poverty but only in urban area, right? Rather than that, data-based introduction is more precise. Then before going to the core part, how it addresses, first briefly using a flowchart you highlight the issues of urban poverty and redistributive justice. Only after highlighting the issues you come to the how smart cities solve the problem of this, right? So major issues of urban poverty and distributive justice is first slum and housing shortage. So 17% of the urban population lives in slums, right? Second, poverty के कौन से aspects होते हैं? Lack of access to this housing, lack unemployment, ठीक है, lack of access to food, education, health. Distributive justice के कौन से aspect होते हैं? Gender justice, intergenerational justice, right? Then equity, inclusivity, उन्हीं basis पे जो मिलेंगे. तो informal work, 80% of the workforce is in informal work. Then basic service gap, unequal access to water, power, sanitation, digital divide, healthcare inequality, education, gender, environment, high cost of living. ठीक है, इतने 9 देने की जरूरत नहीं है. Even if you write 5, 4 to 5, that is also sufficient. ठीक है, and then you come to the role of smart cities in addressing poverty. Again, poverty के different aspects. One is the to give employment with respect to improving the health, improving the educational outcomes, with respect to skills, and with respect to quality of life. No, these are your core aspects of poverty, right? तो उन्हीं के basis पे, so affordable housing and slum redevelopment through Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana urban projects. ठीक है, then skill development and livelihood creation through national urban livelihood missions. ठीक है, then support to informal economy. The Indore Smart City earmarked vending zones under Street Vendors Act. Then improved basic services. जैसे बेसिक सर्विसेज में कौन सा है आपका, या फिर एनवायरनमेंट पर्सपेक्टिव से इंडोर क्लीनेस्ट सिटी और 100% वेस्ट सेग्रीगेशन और दिस सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी, और अहमदाबाद सेंसर बेस्ड वाटर मॉनिटरिंग, ensuring the water availability, right? Then with respect to health access, education access, वही points आएंगे. Only thing you need the examples. अब urbanization is the core theme, so having the examples of the best practices in urbanization is important. Okay. Then with respect to distributive justice, so what are the different aspects of distributive justice? Gender justice, participatory or the participation in governance, environmental justice, digital justice. ठीक है. So inclusive governance and citizen engagement, digital inclusion. Then with respect to equitable service delivery, environmental justice, जैसे ये indoor sewage treatment plant, gender justice. And then with respect to renewable energy, these are the different aspects of the justice. And again, if you are feeling this is too much or the points will lead to overlapping, there is no need to segregate between the distributive justice and poverty. You can give a simple single heading also, and you can write 5 to 6 points related to that. And then as this is the core demand of the question, so at least 7 to 8 points should be there. 8 points. तो इसीलिए है ना कि there is no need for segregation. 8 points at least need to be there.
सर राइटिंग थोड़ी सी बड़ी है तो सर पॉइंट
पॉइंट्स तो कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं होने चाहिए. इवन इफ नहीं, फॉन्ट इफ पॉसिबल थोड़ा फॉन्ट छोटा कर दो, या फिर इलेबरेशन में आपको छोटा करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है. नंबर ऑफ पॉइंट्स यू कैन रिड्यूस. बेस्ट वे इज फॉन्ट थोड़ा सा मीडियम ही रखो. Subheading make it self-explanatory. Then these are the challenges with respect to smart cities and their way forward. ठीक है. मेजर कोई भी गवर्नमेंट के स्कीम के मेजर चैलेंजेस क्या होते हैं? वन इज द टॉप डाउन अप्रोच. ठीक है. सेकंड, डिले इन द प्रोजेक्ट कंप्लीशंस. ठीक है. थर्ड की दिस लो सिटीजन पार्टिसिपेशन you can talk about. Then corresponding way forward. One more, ki urbanization ki we had asked many questions. One global based practice that we suggested, which you can use it into the your answer also. Okay. One is the participatory budgeting. So participatory budgeting of Porto Algero in Brazil. ठीक है. Second, with respect to the disaster management, ठीक है, or the flood management or the spawn city concept of China. ठीक है. You can use those also. And then you can conclude with principle of equity, sustainability, inclusion, smart cities can evolve into just cities of 21st century. Okay, because as it is talking about poverty and justice, right? So what we have done is, rather than smart cities, we need just cities where growth and justice move hand in hand. Okay, and again, these are the components of poverty and distributive justice. So even if you do this, you will be able to generate the points. At least know the components of poverty and distributive justice. Okay.
So if we don't elaborate in the mark data, if we don't elaborate mark data.
No, as long as you are subheading or your entire point is understandable. Okay. If he is able to comprehend what you want to say, he won't deduct it. Okay. The length of the point is not the issue. Again, this is the basically this is from the GS2. This should be from the GS2. from governance section, but they have asked it in GS1. अब ये सोसाइटी का क्वेश्चन है या इकोनॉमिक ज्योग्राफी का है या पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस हिस्ट्री का है, दैट आई डोंट नो, बट है GS1 का. ठीक है. The ethos of civil service in India stands for the combination of professionalism and nationalistic consciousness. So basically, again there will be two subheadings. Civil services related question है तो what you can do, you can start with one quote if you have of PM Modi, ठीक है, or you can start with the views of Sardar Patel, who considered civil services as the steel frame of governance. Okay, you can start with that, and then professionalism and nationalistic consciousness. Okay, again with respect to the civil services or with respect to the good governance, a simple framework to generate the dimensions are, you need to know the components of good governance. There are 8 features of good governance. Right, transparency, accountability, citizen centrality, consensus building, etc. So those you need to know. And second, you need to know the 7 Nolan principles. ठीक है, वही आपके पॉइंट्स आएंगे. सो प्रोफेशनलिज्म में कौन से आप कहेंगे? ऑब्जेक्टिविटी इन डिसीजन मेकिंग, impartiality in decision making, ठीक है, then integrity and uprightness in decision making. Professionalism will also involve the specialization or the domain knowledge. Yes, no, वही पॉइंट आएंगे. तो पॉलिटिकल न्यूट्रलिटी एंड इम्पार्शियलिटी, तो सिविल सर्वेंट्स एग्जाम्पल, सिविल सर्वेंट्स enforcing the model code of conduct, or you can give the example of TN session also. Rule of law and constitutional supremacy, efficiency and competence, transparency, accountability, service orientation, specialization and innovation. Right. Second, they are talking about nationalistic consciousness. So nationalistic consciousness means their role towards the nation. So their role towards the nation is, one is with respect to ensuring the equality. Second, the developmental role. Right. Third, achieving the constitutional vision of social justice. No, वही आपके पॉइंट्स आएंगे. तो commitment to the constitutional morality. So safeguarding democracy, secularism, equality, liberty. Then nation building and developmental orientation. You can also talk about inclusive and sustainable development. Right. Unity in diversity and national integration, or ensuring the rule of law and maintaining the law and order. Example, the northeast insurgency areas वगैरह, disaster response, national social justice, international representation of India. What they have asked is, the ethos of civil services stands for combination of professionalism and with symbol nationalistic consciousness. So one more heading we will prepare of fusion of professionalism and nationalism. So this fusion highlights one Nehruvian vision where civil servants must be politically neutral yet deeply committed to the development of India. So this is professionalism, this is national consciousness. Right. Then second ARC also talks about the same. If you want, you can use the diagram also. Okay, this is professionalism, this is national consciousness, this intersection part is the holistic competence of civil servants. Right, you can use that circular diagram also. Okay, and then Indian civil servants are the efficient nation builders. They act as the servants of the people and guardians of the national unity. Or you can also talk about thus the professionalism and national consciousness are the key components of the civil servants as a karma yogi or karma yogi civil servants. Okay? That. Okay. Then, do you think that globalization results in only aggressive consumer culture? Justify your answer. Again, this is the opinion based question. So, normally, what we do in the opinion based question, we give arguments based question. Sorry, we give argument in favor and argument against. ठीक है, simple. Up, there's a first question. If you see, again, this was again on expected lines. Basically, good link between the globalization and consumerism. They are asking here also. If you see, religious commodification and spiritual consumerism are emerging trends in India's globalized economy. Okay, not on overall consumerism, but spiritual and religious commodification and consumerism. I had already asked this question. Okay. Again, basically, if you see the previous micro themes also, what they do is they ask the impact of the globalization on different sections. They ask the impact on the woman, impact of on the elderly, okay, impact on the India's diversity and cultural pluralism. Okay, so basically they ask the impact on. This was also on the expected lines. So I was expecting a question on impact on the middle class, right? Then this impact on the culture, impact on the religion. Okay. So again, as this is a globalization based question, what we will be doing is we will be starting with the definition of the globalization. Right. So you just mug this up as per the Thomas Friedman in his book, The Lexus and the Olive Tree. Globalization is the inexplorable integration of markets, states, technologies, which enable the individuals, corporations, and countries to reach farther, faster, deeper, and cheaper than ever before. But if you want to go further, it had made the world flat. You can double colon the word flat. Okay? Globalization resulting in aggressive consumer culture, arguments in favor, arguments against. Okay? Second key, when you ask about the impact of something, okay, in society and social justice specifically, if possible, try to use the circular diagram, where the vicious cycle or the virtuous cycle. Okay, that will add more value to your answer. जैसे ग्लोबलाइजेशन रिजल्टिंग इन अग्रेसिव कंज्यूमर कल्चर, आर्ग्यूमेंट्स इन फेवर. अगेन जो मैंने क्वेश्चंस पूछे वही आपके पॉइंट्स आ सकते थे. रिलीजियस कमोडिफिकेशन, उसका एक पॉइंट आपका बनेगा. स्पिरिचुअल कंज्यूमरिज्म, उसका एक पॉइंट आपका बनेगा. ठीक है. देन कल्चरल होमोजिनाइजेशन, उसका एक पॉइंट बनेगा. ये योगा क्लासेस आपके वही तो है ना. योगा क्लासेस हो गया, और कौन सा, माइंडफुल क्लासेस हो गया, और कौन सा मेडिटेशन वाले हो गए. ठीक है. देन आर्ग्यूमेंट्स इन फेवर, मैकडोनलाइजेशन, ग्लोबल ब्रांडिंग एंड एडवर्टाइजिंग, फेस्टिवल कमर्शियलाइजेशन, rise of fast fashion and FMCG, then urban middle class consumerism. Already I had asked the question, right? Then e-commerce, rise of e-commerce, credit culture, ठीक है, the rise of EMI culture वगैरह. बस. Then this is the impact that you will be highlighting. कि globalization resulting into the liberalization of trade, resulting into entry of global brands, advertising, then easy credit, and aggressive consumer culture. This aggressive consumer culture further leads to globalization. Right, either circle या फिर ऐसे भी अगर किया तो भी चलेगा. But you had to establish that interlinking between the concepts, right? Mhm.
Thinking we will do in conclusion or in main
No, main body only. अगर if you are going for the vicious cycle तो वो तो साइड में आएगा मार्जिन्स में, ठीक है। या फिर व्हाट यू कैन डू, यू कैन अडॉप्ट दिस Smriti Mishra AR4. You read her answers. What she used to do is she used to give such kind of the subheading, and in elaboration she used to establish this kind of the interlinking. ठीक है, और she used to make this interlinking itself as one point. ठीक है। इजी क्रेडिट मतलब आपका EMI कल्चर हो गया, देन 59 मिनट्स क्रेडिट हो गया, वेयर द क्रेडिट इज अवेलेबल विदाउट ड्यू डिलीजेंस। नाउ दी दिस द डिजिटल लेंडिंग एप्स आपके हो गए, इंस्टेंट क्रेडिट हो गया ना, दैट या क्रेडिट कार्ड कल्चर हो गया, दैट इज आल्सो वन ऑफ द इजी क्रेडिट। देन आर्ग्यूमेंट्स अगेंस्ट, no, globalization is not just about the consumerism. Globalization is beyond the consumerism, right? For example, globalization also promotes minimalist lifestyles. Example, ki Scandinavian logum, एक second. Ki Scandinavian logum lifestyle, then knowledge and technology transfer. It's not just about consumerism, it's also about the intellectual empowerment in terms of speed of education, science, health innovations, right? Then rise of global social movements by promoting the global justice in environment, in gender domains, right? The example Me Too movement you can give. Then sustainable consumption, promotion of the eco-friendly products, right? Right. Then rise of sharing economy. ठीक है, rather than consumerism, it has also given rise to the sharing economy. Then digital awareness campaigns you can give. Then global policy framework encouraging restraint. ठीक है, कि UNSDG goal 12 responsible consumption. Then promotion of cultural diversity and niche global markets. ठीक है, so it is not just about the consumerism, it is also about the diversity. Yes, in this way you can generate both the points. ये basically globalization का impact ऐसे अगर if they ask you, there are two ways in which you can generate the points, either the pastel theme या फिर you can use the sectional approach. So with respect to food habits, with respect to clothing habits, with respect to the festivals, with respect to the language, with respect to what else, domestic handicrafts, etc. Okay, on that basis also you can generate the points. Okay. Yes, and then conclusion, again you have to give the balanced conclusion because you are providing both sides, right? So as Amartya Sen argues, globalization is process of interaction and its outcomes depends on how society chose to respond. Okay. Now if you see this answer, again everyone will be writing this answer, but again the X factor pointers will be the keywords that you will be using, the diagram that you will be drawing, and the most important one, the scholars that you will be using. So in both introductions and conclusions, we have used the scholars. So Thomas Friedman, we have given the definition of globalization, and here Amartya Sen, right? Listen again, keep this using the pastel diagram, how to generate the points. How globalization fuels consumer culture. So policy drivers क्या है? FDI, trade liberalization. Then economic, advertising, credit expansion, commercialization. Cultural and social, the McDonaldization, youth FOMO culture, right? Technological drivers, कि the e-commerce हो गया, algorithmic targeting हो गया on social media websites, right? ठीक है, last psychological or behavioral drivers. Okay. Then growing fast food industries, given that there are increased health concerns in the modern society, illustrate with Indian experience. Again, here also if you see what majority or the normal aspirants, what they will do is they will miss out on the key aspect, like they will majorly focus upon the reasons behind growing fast food industries, but they will miss out on the implicit demand, which is what is the implicit demand in this question? Yes. No, the implicit demand increasing health concerns. In, or is this question India specific or the global specific? India specific है. Yes. No, no, no. See, India का भी बताना है आपको, but in overall what they are saying in modern society. So global also you have to give. So when again introduction you can give the same definition, but already अगर एक में आ गया है तो there is no need. Again, this was also the question which I had asked. The silent epidemic of lifestyle diseases and mental health disorders is no longer confined to urban areas. Okay, discuss key drivers of this health transition in rural and semi-rural area. That is again fast food culture, globalization. No? Then this what I have done is basically I have just rephrased the question because जो मेरा standard introduction था, which is the definition of globalization, that I have already used. So now I have to go for the different one. Now I don't have the context also, recent news. So only one way that is remaining with me is the rephrasing of the question. So what question is asking? Ki increased health concerns, and despite that there is growing food industry, right? Growing food industry despite increased health concerns. What this is showing? This is showing a paradox. No, so I will give the introduction with the paradox only. So rise of fast food reflects paradox of modern society. While people are increasingly aware of the health risk of the processed, high fat, high sugar diets, demand for convenience, speed, affordability continues to fuel the growth of industry. And then if you have the data, you can give this data. Okay. Then first, increased health concerns in modern society. यहाँ पे भी modern society India plus world. No, so increase non-communicable disease, diabetes, obesity. No, in तीनों का you just give the data using a flow chart briefly. Then you come to this. Despite these health concerns, there is growing fast food industries. And again, you apply the Pestle formula. Why there is growth in fast food industry? P perspective, policy perspective से the LPG reforms, trade liberalization, ठीक है. Economic perspective से access to credit or the migration, urbanization, the rise of the middle class, right? Then dual income, social perspective से dual income households, ठीक है. Then convenience and speed, ठीक है. Then youth, right? That not unemployment, but the trend in the youth. Technological perspective से वही algorithmic targeting, e-commerce, ठीक है, और the proliferation of the food delivery apps like the and the Swiggy, Zomato, etc. ठीक है. हाँ, वो cultural factors will also come, right? Then अगर देखोगे तो policy perspective से supportive policies and FDI, ना economic perspective से aggressive marketing and branding, McDonald's, McAloo Tikki, affordability and standardization, right? कि Domino's 49 rupees pizza, urbanization, ठीक है. Then time constraint and convenience, changing dietary patterns, ठीक है. Then youth demographies and socialization, कि youth population views eating outside as a leisure and peer activity, ठीक है. Globalization, again rise of McDonaldization or the glocalization. Example, मैकालू टिक्की इन इंडिया, ठीक है, या फिर ये टोको बेल ऑफरिंग पनीर टिक्का टोकोस, ठीक है, पनीर टोकोस ऐसा कोई है नहीं, सिर्फ इंडिया में ही है, राइट, वैसे. देन टेक्नोलॉजिकल इनेबलर्स, स्विगी जोमेटो, चेंजिंग फूड प्रेफरेंस. देन अगेन जो बोला था कि इट हैज नॉट लिमिटेड टू दी अर्बन इंडिया, ठीक है, सो एक्सपांशन इनटू टीयर 2 टीयर 3 सिटीज, वैसे. देन इट्स इम्पैक्ट एंड वे फॉरवर्ड, ठीक है, या फिर डायरेक्टली वे फॉरवर्ड ऑल्सो यू कैन गिव, ठीक है. So even if you give the way forward, that is also fine. And then conclusion, national goals of Eat Right India and SDG. इस वाले में I have, because globalization वाला मेरा जो conclusion था, I used it in previous. So SDG 3 and SDG 12. SDG 3 is with respect to health and well-being. 12 is responsible consumption. Right. Okay. Then achieving sustainable growth with emphasis on environmental protection could come into conflict with poor people's needs in country like India. Right. So basically what they are seeing is sustainable growth with emphasis on environmental protection. Basically the sustainable growth policies of government, so they come into the conflict with the poor people needs. So जैसे for example, what is the sustainable growth policy of government of India? One example of it, Ujjwala scheme. ठीक है, so basically what is happening is it is coming in conflict with the needs of people, or not. You don't take Ujjwala scheme, you can take the example of Forest Rights Act or the Forest Conservation Act or the Environmental Protection Act, right? So that is basically impacting the livelihood or the needs of poor people in India, right? So that is basically the theme of the question. So here also, even though they have asked you to comment, okay, but do you agree with this view?
It's also opinion-based question.
Oh, basically it is an opinion based question, right? So, yes, to some extent it's correct, but to some extent it's wrong also. And again, if you see or apply the common sense, both have the equal weightage, right? Arguments in favor and arguments against also, right? So we have to structure it accordingly. Okay. And again, this I was ये previous भी आया था आपका question, and I also asked the similar question कि how poverty is the cause and consequence of environmental decline in India, right? कि how. Then again, basically, as they are asking about the sustainable development, you can start with the definition of the sustainable development itself. So sustainable development aims to balance economic growth, social justice and environmental protection. However, in developing country like India, where 22 crore people still live in poverty, there is often a tension between environment and meeting the survival needs of the poor. So basically this question is about the debate between environment and development. So yes. Then first, again, before going to the core demand, briefly, sustainable growth and environmental protection. इनके briefly features दे दो. Right, what are the features of sustainable growth? Inclusive development, green energy, sustainable agriculture, green jobs, resource efficiency, right? Environmental protection के pollution control, climate action, biodiversity conservation, water and soil conservation, right? तो इसके सिर्फ आप एक एक स्कीम भी आप बता सकते हो, ठीक है? Just give the context as to features of both, and then you come to the core aspect कि conflict between sustainable growth, environmental protection and poor people's needs. Okay, so basically again you have to link it with the different needs of the poor people. What are the different needs of the poor people? Need for income, need for food, need for fodder, what else, need for हाउसिंग, ठीक है, वही पॉइंट्स आपको जनरेट करने हैं. सो डिपेंडेंस ऑन फॉरेस्ट एंड कॉमन्स. सो एनवायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन रिस्ट्रिक्ट्स एक्सेस टू फॉरेस्ट, रिवर्स एंड grazing lands. Example, tribal forest dwelling communities faced eviction under wildlife sanctuaries and tiger reserves. Right. Then energy access. Example, कि high cost of refilling under Ujjwala Yojana. Right. Then employmental versus environmental norms. कि strict environmental impact assessment norms or the bans by the Supreme Court leading to the loss of employment. Example, ban on this mining bans in Goa and Bellary in Karnataka has impacted livelihood of the poor. Right. Then pollution control versus job creation. The ban on the Vedanta's Niyamgiri bauxite project led to again unemployment. Then livelihood in informal sector, again ban on single-use plastic has resulted into the hit the informal recycling sector. Then climate smart agriculture versus cost burden. So organic natural farming reduces chemicals but increases labor and cost for marginal farmers, again against their needs. Then high cost of the green alternatives also. So high cost of EV auto rickshaw. EV cars मत लिखना, that is not the poor people need. Poor people need is EV auto rickshaw. Then displacement by green projects. Wait, just a minute. Hello, lecture मध्ये. Oh, ठीक. However, focus on sustainable development and environmental protection also fulfills poor people needs. That is the counter argument. तो जैसे वन सिक्योरिंग लाइवलीहुड, उसी के काउंटर आर्गुमेंट देने हैं कि सिक्योरिंग लाइवलीहुड कौन सा, जॉइंट फॉरेस्ट मैनेजमेंट अंडर फॉरेस्ट राइट्स एक्ट. राइट. सेकंड, कि राइट्स ओवर माइनर फॉरेस्ट प्रोड्यूस, नो, अंडर द सेम एक्ट. देन again health benefits. Basically if you see the this pollution etc impacts the poor disproportionately, right? So if the health pollution decreases, right, so health benefits for the poor. So national clean air program in Delhi reduced PM 2.5 levels, benefiting the vulnerable communities most vulnerable to the air pollution. Right? Affordable clean energy, Ujjwala Yojana, more than 9 crore subscriptions. Resilience against climate shocks. So example, Manrega linked watershed project, increasing the groundwater level. It's all about the example. Then green jobs. ऊपर ही हमने सोलर में ही ऑलरेडी दिया है ये डेटा, अगेन दैट पॉइंट विल बी रिपीटेड. ठीक है. देन फूड सिक्योरिटी, इंश्योरिंग द फूड सिक्योरिटी थ्रू सस्टेनेबल एग्रीकल्चर. देन राइट्स बेस्ड एनवायरमेंटल प्रोडक्शन, वही माइनर फॉर. यू कैन ऑल्सो ऐड द पॉइंट intergenerational justice. Equity or justice. ठीक है, कि sustainable and environmental conservation policies fulfill the needs of not just this but the future generations, right? Then way forward. ठीक है, कि integrated rural development, strengthening social security nets for the poor. Then in conclusion, as Indira Gandhi reminded the 1972 Stockholm Conference, poverty is the greatest polluter. ठीक है. Sustainable development must therefore mean ending poverty while protecting the environment. Again, this SDG, rather than what we have done is, rather than concluding, we have made it into the point itself. ठीक है. And then this is conclusion.
So in these questions, can we take the example of the foreign countries like US, how they have balanced the development along with
Along with
the industrialization and
कहाँ बैलेंस किया? यूए पर कैपिटा हाईएस्ट पोल्यूटर है यूएस. यूएस is the highest per capita emitter in the world. So where is the balance?
On the eastern side, develop the western side.
50% contributed China or US.
So balance, if anyone has balance, that is the Scandinavian. And again, if you go into the deeper sense, that is also flawed because their economies are dependent upon the selling natural resources, oil and gas, which are polluting the other countries. कोई balance नहीं कर रहा है. ठीक है. ये clear है? This is basically your GS paper 1. No, only thing, जैसे मैंने एनालिसिस में कहा था, ठीक है, just give me a minute, कि here, which one? So, right, वो ट्राइबल वाला. This tribal question is also on the similar lines. जो अभी के क्वेश्चन में हमने अप्रोच, बट यहाँ they have explicitly asked the opinion, right? कि what they are saying कि tribal development in India center around two axes, displacement and rehabilitation. Give your opinion. Okay, so basically when they ask you our opinion, what we do we give our opinion? Yeah, we try to balance. So here also arguments in favor. No, key tribal development revolves around displacement and rehabilitation. So example सरदार सरोवर हो गया, recently वो नियमगिरी का हो गया, हसदेव नेशनल पार्क हो गया, ठीक है, that. And arguments against कि no, tribal development is not just about rehabilitation and displacement. एग्जाम्पल फिर हेल्थ इम्प्रूवमेंट का स्कीम्स बताओ, एजुकेशन एकलव्य मॉडल स्कूल्स बताओ, इट ऑल्सो रिलेटेड टू देयर एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, स्टैंड अप इंडिया बताओ, देन विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू द प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ देयर लाइवलीहुड और दी दिस प्रमोशन ऑफ ट्राइबल कल्चर्स, जस्ट जीआई टैग दे दो, या फिर दिस एमएसपी फॉर द माइनर फॉरेस्ट प्रोड्यूस, ठीक है, वंधन योजना जो थी वो लाओ, ठीक है, नेहरूज ट्राइबल पंचशील पॉलिसी लाओ, देन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोटेक्शन to cultural practices under 5th 6th schedule. That will be your counter arguments, and then way forward. Okay, simple. Again, introduction will be data based. Again, similar question in this FLT itself. The empowerment of tribal communities requires shift from top down to the bottom up participation. So जो relief and rehabilitation वाला है, that is the top down, and what you need is the bottoms up. ठीक है, so simple कि the data based introduction, tribal communities, 8.6% of the population live in resource rich but economically poor regions. ठीक है, then displacement, again large dams, irrigation projects, mining, wildlife conservation, urban expansion and infrastructure, environmental projects, right? And rehabilitation में compensation focus, कि जैसे नर्मदा ये हो गया आपका, सरदार सरोवर प्रोटेस्ट हो गया, फॉरेस्ट राइट एक्ट हो गया, लाइवलीहुड सपोर्ट, सोशल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. बट बियॉन्ड डिस्प्लेसमेंट एंड रिहेबिलिटेशन द ट्राइबल डेवलपमेंट इज मूविंग टुवर्ड्स एम्पावरमेंट. तो जैसे गाइडिंग फिलोसॉफी ऑफ नेहरूज ट्राइबल पंचशील पॉलिसी, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल सेफगार्ड्स, लीगल एम्पावरमेंट, right? Legal empowerment giving the self-governing rights. So legal empowerment में here in elaboration you can mention self-governing rights. ठीक है, and then socio-economic development schemes, cultural preservation, health, nutrition focus, political representation. वही points आएंगे आपके. Way forward, and then conclusion. ठीक है, कि basically what they are asking, again comparison based question है कि from development, from rehabilitation to the more bottoms up development type. So tribal development must move from reactive approach of rehabilitation to proactive model of empowerment. That's it. That is your futuristic conclusion. Hmm? Yes, sir. Basically, like I said, key those 11 easy questions. Okay, you have to maintain the this. This see getting this is very easy. Okay. Getting this is very easy. Even now, if you write that paper, you will get this much marks. Okay. This will require some knowledge. Okay. And this will require knowledge plus creativity. And this creativity is your X factor. Okay. And this will come only with एक कि when you shift your focus from directives to keywords, right? Irrespective of the directives, we have given the challenges and this. We have used the directive only to decide on the weightage. Otherwise, we have tried to cover that theme comprehensively only. Second, we comprehensive theme coverage by going beyond the demand. Right. And third, bringing the X factor and ensuring the visibility of it. Right. Yes. Okay. This is how you can score above 105 to 110 in GS paper 1. Okay. Yes. बाकी any doubts अभी?
Now we're talking about creativity aspects. So we have to use it on spot or we have to
नहीं, on spot का जो box करना है वो तो पहले से ही है. Then for every theme you have to prepare your X factor pointers. जैसे मेजरली है ही क्या, फैक्ट फाइल है. सेकंड आपका जो डायग्राम है वो है. थर्ड इज द मैप वेर इनोवेटिव यूज ऑफ द मैप. तो वो तो ऑन द स्पॉट नहीं होंगे. दैट इज नॉट द प्रेजेंटेशन वे. आई एम सेइंग कि एक्स फैक्टर इज द कंटेंट ओनली. दैट इज द यूनिक कंटेंट. यू आर यूजिंग प्रेजेंटेशन जस्ट टू एनहांस द विजिबिलिटी ऑफ इट, राइट. सो वो तो पहले से प्रिपेयर्ड ही होना चाहिए. ओके. हाँ हाँ, आपको कल मिल जाएगा.
While addressing the implicit demand को एड्रेस करते हुए प्रोसेस उसमें जो हेडलाइंस दी जाती है टॉपिक उसको सेल्फ एक्सप्लेनेटरी छोड़ देना चाहिए, उसको एक्सप्लेन करना है.
किसको?
इम्प्लिसिट डिमांड्स को.
वो तो आपको डायग्राम थ्रू यू एड्रेस करना है ना.
ठीक है.
मतलब ये जो किया था हमने हेल्थ वाला वगैरह जो.
ये सर मैंने आपको उसमें समीक्षा में लिखा था कि आपने ई हेल्थ पे कराया था. वो ई गवर्नेंस का मल्टीपेरियस इंटरेक्शन है. तो सर आपने वो यानी कि बैंकिंग सेक्टर में तो आपने वो भी लिखा था कि यूपीआई पेमेंट्स को किस तरह फैसिलिटेट करना है. तो सर उसको सिंपली वर्ड में डाल के मैं जनरली मैं करता कि सर उसको ई हेल्थ यानी कि उसको ही छोड़ देता हूँ. सर ई हेल्थ में है साथ में